Not bad, right?
Not bad.
I love her
sets
intro.
the mood.
I love that you guys do it live.
Yeah. Sitting here with a guitar, just me doing it,
playing it in front of the
rocking
microphone.
it
It's
on my
amazing how
bass.
good that sounds.
So
you couldn't
good.
believe that was a bass guitar.
One that hasn't been tuned in maybe a decade? I don't know.
Maybe two. I don't know. I don't know the last time I tuned that thing. I don't play bass anymore. I just have no heart to sell it.
I have things like that.
Yeah, you're just like, I don't need it. And I don't.
Kids.
Yeah. All right, welcome to the Blue Collar Philosophers podcast.
I'm Kickstand. That's Biker Mike from Mars.
And we
are
gotta-
being... If you thought that was me that just said that, no. We are joined by a person of my bloodline. And the similarities are becoming more apparent as we talk.
You look like you're growing a beard there. How's it going?
I can't grow a fucking beard. He's not growing one while we're talking. This took so long to do, and it sucks.
Hi, my name is Jesse Braun. I'm related to Devin, and I can't grow a beard.
Can you?
Neither
No.
can
Have you
I, but I
tried?
still do.
I tried during the pandemic, and everyone except my dad said cut it off. It was terrible.
Except that's when you knew
No,
that you're
he
like, oh, I
said-
gotta fucking cut it off. It's
No,
because
he
my
said-
dad's the only one not saying
He
to
said,
do
that
it.
looks really good. I'm glad you're following Christ now.
Oh, that's good. Jesus had a beard.
Oh, it took you 33 years to get it, but you know, I don't know how old you are. I'm just gonna
I'm 38, so it was close.
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 At the start of the pandemic, you were 36
35.
and 35. Ugh.
I know. I had like bald spots and things like that going on, but I figured like
Yep.
the longer it went, the more it would hide those things. And I'm really lazy.
It grows
Yeah.
personality though. It does allow you to adopt a different personality. When you have a beard, you're like, I can do things.
I threatened to shave it off once, and my wife was like, "Hold on a second." It's like,
Oh, in the beginning.
no, this was I don't know, maybe 2-3 years ago.
Oh,
But she was like, "Hold on a second. Neither one of us know what's under there. I think it's better the devil we know than the one we don't."
So you are a Braun, and you can see the amazing Braun chin line. Keep the beard.
well, here's my issue. I am far too slender to have a double chin. And then the last time I shaved, I did have one. And since that moment, I have not shaved. And I'm like, if I do get a job where I have to shave, I'm going to be very lonely. My wife's going to be like, don't kiss me. She told me to grow it.
I had the exact opposite. That's why I do not have a beard or facial hair.
Fair enough. I'd do it too.
Exactly.
All right. So the reason we have a guest is because he heard one of our episodes and was so offended that he felt
He had to come on and
defend
confront
himself
us.
and say, "Hey, join the Braun cult."
Which episode?
Cult's
you-
one. You messaged him. I don't know.
You sent me a message.
Oh, I said I was triggered.
Yeah, you said you were
That's what I
triggered,
mean.
and I assumed it meant because you were super offended.
That's most of our hate mail.
I was not offended.
Yeah,
Triggered.
yeah. So, yeah, what's the story there? You were listening to the episode entitled "Cults!" exclamation marks.
Hold on. Real quick question. Have we offended you yet? Anything we said that offended you yet?
No.
Oh, you're fucked
Weird.
up.
We're not doing our
I'm
job.
sorry. I'm sorry.
All right.
I'm along the same line here.
Well, that's terrifying.
I'm not as blue collar maybe, but I'm along the same line.
Yeah, we got a white collar here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was
what have
thinking
we
about
But you
that.
have been
What
white
have we
collar.
done?
I have been blue collar.
You have been.
I have been
You,
blue
you
collar.
know what?
Yes.
You're not like one of those guys who grew up with a lot of money. He was like, oh, I've never. I don't even know what a claw hammer is.
No, I grew up carpenter, farmer-ish. Not really. The Presbyterian background, all that good stuff. So I got the blue collar in me too.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, no, cult episode. Was listening to it, and it just reminded me a lot of stuff from my childhood, a lot of misconceptions that people had about my family as we went through stuff.
Okay.
And I think you know some of the stories, so it'll be fun to have a chat because we haven't, I don't think, ever really talked about
No,
this.
we haven't.
Which will be very
And
interesting.
This is so weird. Like, you know, you and I,
Super weird.
You and I are related. You know,
Yeah.
in some points in our life, I felt like we were good friends.
Yep.
Just life and kids and different career paths sometimes taken in divergent ways, but we never really sat down to chew the fat. I had an idea that perhaps you had gone through some kind of deconstruction or something like that, just because from some comments you've made,
Sure.
not a few years back. But yeah, like I'm gonna learn.
Well,
I think a lot about your experience today.
The reason I kind of wanted to come on then was basically to allow you to do that. I found, so maybe I'll give you the background. I'm a preacher's kid.
Mm-hmm.
I was born and raised in, the classic Christian family, if you want that one there.
PK.
Yeah. My dad took over from a pastor when he was, I might not have even been born yet. It was very early. Anyway, so like my whole life. And so I was always drowned in Christian philosophy, mostly much like, I guess, like yourself, coming out of the old colony Mennonite background and into more of a evangelical Mennonite. My dad went through, I would say, his own, not deconstruction so much as searching for something more. And as I looked at it now, being able to understand, being a dad and being a little older myself, he was probably just searching for something that he never had. And so when I was about 16, he went from regular evangelical Mennonite to, I'm not sure what you'd call it. I'll try to explain it, but it was...
I guess from my perspective,
on the outside, from your perspective, what did it look like?
On the outside looking in, I was young too. I was younger than you were at this time, just by a couple years. But, we spent time in your dad's church.
Yeah.
Here in town, right?
Yep.
And I could sense there was a shift at some point, but I saw it just becoming more and more extreme. By degrees. It didn't seem like it happened all at once, but it's like I would just notice your dad's tone would become a little harsher when he's preaching.
Sure.
Or I noticed one day we went over to hang at your place and there's no more TVs.
Yeah.
Or things like that.
What
right?
age was that? Because usually something like that's a very noticeable for a child.
Yeah. But for me too, looking at your family, I always knew, in our family lineage, your family was the most conservative.
Yeah.
Sure. The women all wore skirts and dresses, always fully covered, very,
not
very
always,
modest.
though.
Okay, I guess as far back as I can remember, because you guys moved away to Manitoba for a time.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't really remember much before you guys got back.
Yeah, so we were very, I would say, if you want to use the word normal Christians, except for being preachers' kids, until probably 1998, 2000, somewhere in there, when you saw that shift, when we moved back from Manitoba. And my dad was pastoring here in town. And I remember distinctly one Christmas him preaching a sermon, and I don't know why he preached it, but he was preaching about how bad Christmas trees were. And all of a sudden everybody was looking at him going, hold on a second, what's going on? What's different here? And he started to get more and more legalistic. That would be the best way to describe it.
Okay, yep. That's good.
So started to put in a bunch of rules that maybe don't make sense in the Christian world. And so I was 16 again at that time. And you probably saw it progressively. I was like the frog in the fire, where you don't really get it until it's a little too late. And all of a sudden I'm like, what just happened? I don't understand who these people are, and I live with them, and it's my family.
Yeah, that's strange. I have maybe a sense of that with my own parents kind of going the other direction, becoming more and more disillusioned with faith and with religion and with the legalistic parts of it. But it's till I realized, okay, you guys aren't the same as what I grew up with. And that just kind of took me by surprise when I realized it, but looking back, it was very progressive.
It was weird contemplating on coming on here and thinking, now I'm close to the age Dad was when he made a lot of those shifts. He was maybe a couple years older. And I kind of understand it a little more. Sometimes when you're just disillusioned with stuff, you're going to make choices that don't make sense. And at the time, he had a big family, and he thought the best way to make sure that they all stayed on, quote-unquote, the Christian path was to put in a bunch of rules. Get rid of the TV, get rid of Christmas, get rid of, like you mentioned already, make the women wear modest clothes, because that way, we're not making men stumble.
Yeah.
And just introducing a whole bunch of different rules, and then just kept on clamping down, and we became the classic homeschooled weird family where you closed the doors on Halloween to make sure nobody showed up. You handed out tracts in Walmart if you could, and preached to people if you could, and it became a place where I remember distinctly one time I wore a red shirt to church and I got reamed out because the pastor that had come up from Manitoba had come from an Amish background where red was the devil's color and I shouldn't wear that. And so that it got to that level where I was like, I can't live in this anymore. And it really stuck something in between us. And I eventually moved out and moved on.
Mm-hmm. What age did you actually get out
I
of your
moved
own
out
house?
at 19.
At 19. Okay.
18.
Which is a relatively
18,
normal
It's
time for
a
it.
regular.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
That's
should
a-
have.
Yeah, that's a normal time to kind of strike out on your own.
You would think.
At least,
So,
okay, fair enough.
So did you get the gears for doing it? Like, were your parents
Absolutely.
like...
So I was. So number one, I'm not the kid then that I am now. I was. Everything I did was to honor my parents and to win their approval.
Okay.
I'm a people pleaser at the core. I've realized that afterwards.
That's a Braun trait.
It's a Braun trait for sure. So thank you, Grandpa. I love you. Rest in peace. But it's something we got.
But that's something that
Yeah, and so it stuck there for a long time, and then they left to go to Manitoba, and I'd had enough. I packed my Honda Civic, I moved out, and they came home, and I was gone.
Oh wow.
And I was just like, I'm out of here. And was it the right choice? Probably not, but it was what I had to do at the time.
Yeah. At least that's the way you felt. You were like, hey, this is my only option.
Yeah.
As long as I want to remain sane.
Yeah.
What do you think? I think when you hear something like that, people think, "Oh, you're just going through a rebellious phase." It's
Yeah.
like, no. I from outside looking in, now at my age with what I know, I look at that and I'm like, no, that was your best way to honor them without betraying your conscience or even going against. Like, how
To
do
be
you?
fair, at the time, it was probably rebellious, and I was just out. I'm like,
Okay.
no, I don't care anymore. I'm done with this.
Yeah.
I don't want to understand it. I need to leave.
Yeah.
From the outside, like you said, the piece that triggered me from your cult episode was people told me afterwards that it seemed like my family had become a cult. The church they had joined had the same legalistic rules. The people that they hung out with had a couple very charismatic preachers who preached brimstone and fire.
I grew up in those. Yeah.
Yeah, except like all the rules that were so much beyond what the Bible ever teaches.
Mm-hmm.
You must do this, you must do these things, you must do each and everything perfect, or else you're going to hell. And if you're not this church, it's the only church, you're going to hell. And there was some metrics that when you guys were talking about it, I was like, oh, I can see why people saw that.
Yeah. If you go to a church that says if you don't go to this church, you're going to hell, or if you don't believe exactly the way this denomination does, you're going to hell. Little culty, cult light.
I mean, cult-like thinking can sneak in a lot of different ways, and not even just in religious scenarios. I mean, like, there's companies that can become
Absolutely.
cults, or even just little family dynamics that become cult-like, or just random ministries or brotherhoods or things like that. Like, it doesn't necessarily become a full-on cult, but it's very, very easy for that insular us versus them type of thing to happen. Or you can have people in it that start to use traditional cult-like manipulations to keep people around. And
the thing is, most of the time it's incremental. It's such small incremental that they may not even realize they're doing it until you're got a little monastery and you're sleeping with everyone's wife. And it's actually, you should notice it before that point.
But, hey, back to my frog in the water.
point.
yeah, yep, okay.
That is part of, you don't see it until you are out of it.
Yeah.
Maybe I left for the wrong reasons. Maybe it was a rebellious thing. But a few months later when I went back, it was like, oh, yeah, no. This is not even close to what the Bible's teaching anymore. There's so much extra. And I could see, okay, yeah, it's gone too far. You don't realize it when you're in it. So I can 100% sympathize with people in actual cults,
Now,
why they would stick around.
looking back at your younger self, when you left, did you do what every homeschool kid does and just go fucking nuts?
No.
No?
No,
That
and
is
so
an
so
earnest question.
no, it's a great question, and I think this is where probably you'd be interested too. Is where I think God came in and had a soft landing pad for me. I could have.
Yeah,
I wanted to.
They all do.
I thought.
Not all, but you
Yeah,
know.
like my craziest years, I never even drank till I was after married.
What?
Yeah, yeah. So like, it wasn't like I ever went and did drugs or got partying or anything like that. We went to one party and we were all uncomfortable and left. Like we're like, this is no good. We're gonna leave. Our
I can see an ankle. There's an ankle over there.
I went to a nightclub once and I was like, I am the nun in the singles bar. This place is not for me. Later, people. I'm just gonna go sit in the car until you're done. And
No.
I did. I went and sat in the car.
No, that's not even. No, that's the opposite. That's weak sauce. I don't know. I guess I'm also a PK, but I am the opposite of that. Where I'll be like, no, I'll go to the nightclub. No, I'll go to the bar. I grew up in a small town where we had two bars. My friend's parents owned one of them, so I went and hung out there because that was all there was to do. We played pool and had horrible jukebox music.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I was saved far better because I knew how to handle myself in a nightclub. I don't know how to dance though.
Do you
To
say
this
I was
day.
saved more better?
More better? Yeah.
You were saved
Do
more
you see
fucking
better.
what, do you see what I
white-collar
live with,
piece of
Jesse?
Yeah, that's excellent. No, I just like the fact that you thought you were saved better.
More gooder.
Sociologically, I could function better than you guys.
Yeah, no, I wanted to. I was lucky that I had a really great bunch of friends, and they were like, "No, that's not what we're gonna do now." And I actually had a longing too. I didn't want to leave God. That was a big difference. I knew that something was wrong, and so when I left, I was like, I remember thinking there must be cool Christians. It's not like all these stodgy old colony Mennonites or these legalistic, like this is the only way to be with Christ. The Bible reads really exciting. God seems cool. Like this is an all-powerful God who created a whole nation that went out and did all sorts of stupid stuff, but he's still stuck with them. And it's like, God is amazing.
Yeah.
So I knew that there was something else, and I was lucky enough to join up with a team after we left. Like, I didn't really go to church for a bit after, but there was a ministry team out at the Blueberry Bible Camp. I don't know if you remember. They're like 20 minutes north of town here.
Yeah.
Kids camp. But there was a man named Dan Vike, and he was running the camp at the time, and he started just a thing for 19, 20-year-olds to study the Bible, pray, and do some ministry stuff. And I think that honestly was what kept me from going off the deep end, if you want to call it that way.
Yeah.
Because he started teaching us what the Bible really meant, what it really said, and gave us a good foundation for, I think, true Christianity, having a relationship with God, not,
Not Sunday.
all this extra stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sunday plus Jesus plus everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you leave town, or so you pack up, move out of your home after while your parents are away or your family's away. What happens next as far as your relationship? Because you have lots of brothers and sisters. Like it's a big family.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Mennonite way.
So
Yeah.
I guess in the years following that decision that you made for yourself,
Yeah.
what have you experienced as far as your own sense of identity, relationship with family, with all of that? Like how does that dynamic played out?
It's evolved a lot. I mean, that was now for 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a long time
Doesn't
now.
it creep up on you? You're like, oh yeah, it was a couple of years ago.
And I was thinking about this before I came on
20.
here because I knew you guys want to talk about this, and I was like, this is a part of me that for the past probably 5-6 years I've buried deep and not explored. So it's going to be interesting no matter what I do. But as soon as you asked that question, I immediately had a memory. And that's about 2 weeks later going back home and saying, hey, obviously, like they called me and were like, where are you? And all that stuff. And I said, oh, I moved out. Here's why, blah, blah, blah. They still had me back home. There was never like, you're not family anymore or anything like that.
Okay.
But I went back home, and before I left to go back into town, Dad was like, okay, just so you know, I know you've made this choice and I can't change that. You're old enough now that this is a choice you can make. You will not have any communication with your brothers and sisters in any way other than like, hi, how you doing, how's the weather? I don't want you to influence them. I don't want you to give them the idea that this is okay. Don't talk to them. I took that seriously for quite a while, like 5-6 years probably.
Wow.
And I didn't. And it hurt and it sucked. And I still don't know my youngest sisters because of that. Because they were like, one of them was like 1 or 2 when I left. And the other was 3 or 4. Like they were just little. So I never got to know them over the next few years. And to this day, we don't have a great relationship because I don't know them. I don't know who they are. That sucked.
Yeah. No kidding.
Beyond that, afterwards, eventually I came to a place and there's a bunch in between where I had to go through my own crisis of faith. But when I came back through that and realized that who I am in God is not my parents, not my background, not my church, nothing like that. It's mine and God's relationship, and became comfortable in who I was. We started to build relationships with my siblings and stuff again. We're at a place now where we go over, we have a visit. It's pretty good. It's not bad at all.
Yeah.
But God always has a plan. And through it, a few of my brothers reached out and said, hey, when you left, how'd you do it? What did you do? Why'd you do it? And so I've had some really good conversations with them and actually helped a couple of them leave too. Even though, I mean, that's exactly against what I was told to do. And I had to make a choice and say, I think it's the right thing to do. I have to do it myself. So, yeah.
Do you think there's been any regret on your parents' side on how they handled it? Because are you the oldest of your siblings?
Yeah, I'm the oldest. Yeah.
Okay. So you were the test subject, essentially. Really, honestly, as a dad.
Just like all of our oldest kids, right? It's like
the oldest is.
I'm sorry.
The oldest is the guinea pig.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so same
sure
thing with
there
my
is.
son. There's things that I'm like, okay, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Do you think there's any kind of admitted regret from your father that he's been like, I didn't do this right. I messed up.
He's never admitted to that. He has said, do you wish that I had basically word for word, do you wish that I'd sacrificed what I believe in so that you kids would have grown up in a more normal home? And I was like, I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah.
As a kid, how do you say?
That's a hard question to answer.
No, that's
Holy
not.
shit.
That is a complete. It's a strong. I don't like the question because it sets a premise of you asking him to betray his faith and understanding. When you're like, hey, I wish we could have discussed this. I wish we could have had questions about what you believe. It is a loaded question. I don't like it.
I don't. And I didn't. I wish we could have had those conversations, but it was always, this is what we are, this is what we believe, like it or get off the bus.
But that's where I have discussions. Well, I try to guide my son in a lot of ways where I try to do the opposite of this is why I believe it. This is what the Bible says. And if you can think of something, ask me every question and I should be able to defend it. Not this is what we believe or get off.
So you guys probably find this too. Yeah, I just ticked you off. This is good. You probably find this too now raising your kids. A lot of what you were raised as influences exactly how you react or talk to your kids. I feel that I almost swing the other way where I want them to discover and learn for themselves and be able to defend for themselves from what they've learned, not from what I've told them.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say intentionally, but almost intentionally don't raise my kids in the Word. Yeah, that sounds horrible. When I know
what I mean. Exactly what you're saying. I'm the same way. I'm petrified of it because I don't want to turn into a religious guru for my kid. Or, I mean, that's not the way. I don't want to turn into a religious tyrant to my kid.
Yeah, I think if I can word it better, I want to.
Yeah,
you don't like the word tyrant?
To teach. Well, I like it because it's not what I want to be, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to teach them how to study the Word and discover it for themselves instead of teach them what I think the Word says.
Yeah.
Because when I teach them, my opinion comes out, my bias comes out. I'd rather you discover it and learn, and we have those conversations that's open because that was never available.
Well, look at what we did with the Chris Date episode that we had. We were able to bring on this guy that I don't know if I agree with, but we had this discussion. So if my kid asked me, hey, Dad, do you want, like somebody said, hey, do you even want to go to heaven? And I'm like, what do you mean by the word heaven?
You can pour how much you want. I don't want to get you smashed. Or do I?
He might. Okay, hold on. He said he hasn't worked through his story here, and last time somebody was working through something, they needed me to drive them home. So
yeah, the deconstruction episode. I'm not gonna lie. I spent some time in front of the porcelain god that night.
I love that episode because I didn't obviously go through what you did, and I love your story, and thank you for sharing it. But it did help me go, oh yeah, us as men, that's what we do sometimes.
Yeah.
We have to go through those, take all the shit that we learned, and then figure out what we actually believe and what's true.
Yeah.
And so I love this kind of thing, so we can just talk about it. It's
Yeah.
cool.
And so, like I was saying, when raising our kids, like in the word, what does it mean? Well, these are nuanced discussions that we can have, and sometimes they're too complicated for kids.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to sugarcoat the Bible in some ways, where you talk about Jonah and the whale. Me? Jonah's a bitch. Don't like him.
Yeah.
Everyone's like,
You're definitely not supposed to like Jonah.
you're not
He's
supposed to.
He's not a sympathetic
But they
character.
are taught in Sunday school. It's like, oh, he went the other way. It's like, no, he didn't just go the other way. No, he didn't just go to Nineveh and preach the gospel and tell them whatever to repent and all this stuff. No, he
Yeah.
went and got a nice view to watch it get destroyed. Like
Hoping it would.
hoping it would. And I have a really hard time. So having these discussions with my kid, I'm not as blunt as I am here, obviously, but I don't like these shallow conversations.
Daddy, did you say Jonah's a bitch?
A giant one.
Throbbing.
I love how in your mind Mike's kids have like an English accent.
why they do.
Daddy,
Father!
can you please tell us the story of Jonah and the whale again? He's such a little bitch.
Stop being a cunt. My wife hates that word, but I think I can say it like that. And it'll be
If
fine.
you're doing a British accent, it's sanctioned.
Oh, but yeah, so there's this nuanced discussion that a lot of people don't have with their kids. And they
Well-
put up, I understand the barriers. That's the thing. I really do.
To some extent.
To an extent.
See,
But
this
I
is
get
because
it.
I had the barriers so high and so hard
Yeah.
all around that I'm like, no, just, learn from your mistakes and that'll be fine. I'll be there to pick you up.
I think.
And I don't know it's right. That's not right either.
It's the reason I say I
if we think we're doing it
understand
right,
it,
we're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a
it's
little
the
bit of
fear
self-doubt's not
failure.
a bad thing.
But that's the thing. It's extreme self-doubt. It's, I can't have you question it. This is the way it is.
Oh yeah, because
Because-
that fear isn't. That's not a position you take out of confidence in your beliefs.
So oh man, that's a good point. I mean, that's something I had to kind of get to in the last couple of years where we're going, oh, all of that was the reason Dad went so hard was insecurity,
Yeah.
is not believing in what he truly preached.
Or truly understanding it.
Or understanding it. And that was huge. That'll blow your mind as a kid who's been through that.
yeah. When you look at your dad as like just a pillar of will.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
of certainty at the very least.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a it blows one's mind to think, oh no, that's rooted in insecurity.
Yeah.
Where-
That does change the game.
Again, as a PK, my dad, when he spoke, and he still does, he speaks with a certain level of certainty of this is the way it is, and
Authority.
and I almost believe him every time. And now I've gotten to this point where I'm like, no, I think I can butt up against him here, and we can have. But since I can speak from the way I speak to,
Yeah.
I can have these discussions, be like, no, I think it's more nuanced than what you're saying in this area. And we're able to have these discussions where I'm not saying he doesn't speak in authority, because he does. He's a great man. I love my dad. But I can have these discussions and disagree with them.
And I love that you can, because I can't.
Yeah.
Like, I've been crushed by comments so often that even now, as my own man, my own family leader, and all that stuff, there's things I will not discuss with him because I'm afraid that I'll get the rug pulled out from under me.
Yeah.
And so I just avoid it. Mm-hmm. And at some point, I'm like, you know what? It's better for my mental health. I'm
Yeah.
just going to avoid it.
And if you are
That's
going to do
fine.
it, just
I mean,
study the
there-
shit out of it and be like, I understand the
Oh, like,
Bible.
I don't know
I've
the-
memorized the Bible.
I don't know the point
But
anymore.
even-
We're just
even if
trying to
it's-
prove my
Yeah.
whatever it is.
If it just gets to a point where it's just a jousting match where you're
Exactly.
like, all right, I'm going to overthrow my father. Then
That's the classic.
yeah, like, but if that's the attitude you're bringing to it,
Yeah.
it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Because you're getting stressed out for something you're not going to convince them otherwise.
The fight's no longer worth the prize.
Yeah.
No,
I'm going to try the minor.
it's really good.
Is it really good?
It is quite nice. It's an Isla. It's a Bowmore 12. It's an Isla, so it's got a bit of peat, bit of smoke
Yeah.
to
It's
it,
not
but it's
super peaty.
but it is not a Lafroig. It's
I've
not
got
a
it like 3 inches
Lagavulin.
from my nose and I
It's-
can get the peat.
Ridiculously smooth.
Yeah, we
Indubitably.
Redeemably?
Indubitably.
Indubitably.
Undoubtedly. I swear, I've only had one. I'm just bad at the English language.
Yeah. It's
Me
really,
and my run-on sentences.
oh, my wife was criticizing.
She was criticizing my Facebook posts. She's like, "You make some good points, but I can't get over your run-on sentences." It's like, fair enough.
It's like, yeah.
And she's like, hey, Devin should tag his shit because it doesn't say that it's you, and I know it's him, and it's not you. I'm like, what? I could be smart. He's like, maybe it's not smart. I'm like, maybe. Who knows?
I don't know. I click see more like 6 times on that post. I'm like, it's too much, Devin.
No, he just writes so much shit. It's well said. It's great. Great
I
for
know.
here.
I know Facebook's not
I'm
a
just
blog.
kidding.
Don't do it. Don't use it as such. But I can't help myself.
And nobody
sometimes.
reads blogs anymore, I don't think. Should we start a Blue Collars blog?
Well,
You can
my-
tell which one's Mike and, well, Jonah's a bitch. That's Mike.
Well, my fear is making a strong statement that is incorrect, and so I try to over nuance everything, and it's just
Ooh.
see,
Ooh, that
right?
first sip feel.
That was very good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What is that called?
Bowmore.
Bowmore.
More 12.
Yeah.
Anyone wants to try a good scotch, Bowmore 12.
Yeah, it is Grinch approved.
It's a lot smoother than I thought it would be. I was looking for a little more Lafoy kind of.
Yeah, that one kicks you in the teeth.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
this
no
one-
Lafoy.
Yeah,
That's what I like about that one though.
dangerous.
Yeah. So anyway,
This is appropriate scotch for today's conversation.
it's smooth.
It's supporting.
Yeah, because we so smooth.
It's so smooth.
Segue.
We're very supportive.
I was just thinking, it's
Not as harsh
we're
as
acting
we
12
need.
years old.
I mean, there's that.
A little juvenile.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know juvenile. That's a big word.
Yeah. Okay, so getting back to our conversation, we rabbit trailed hard.
Sorry.
You mentioned your dad asking you not to speak to your siblings, and you taking that seriously and making the choice to step back. Now, that's one thing for you, because
Yeah.
you're the one making that choice. Do you have any idea what that was like for your siblings? Because
They didn't know about it.
Exactly.
They thought I just left.
So they thought you were just being a dick
Absolutely.
or a Pharisee.
In a
I don't
much
know.
nicer word. Yeah. They,
What's a nicer word than dick? I thought that was a.
Pharisee.
Fair.
That works pretty good.
Thank you.
Well, we're in Fort St. John. Liberal.
He's woke. Cut him off.
We could just call him an isolationist. I don't know. Isolationist to be.
Yeah, no, I mean, there was conversations with my sister later where it was like, you just left and we never saw you again. I'm like, yeah, I wasn't allowed to come back. Either was I had to come back and be all in, bought in, get rid of anything that was me, strip my identity and become... the church was the charity church. Become a charity church person.
Yeah, I've heard of that church, that organization, actually through another
Interesting.
another connection
Yeah.
that was not you guys.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's cool.
and that freaked the fuck out of me.
Hearing about what it was and what
hearing
it actually...
about what that person went through.
Yeah.
Being, okay, so this guy that bumped into them, he was somebody coming out of a worldly life, coming out of motorcycle clubs and drug addiction and stuff like that. And so he came across I don't want to say colony, but
Close enough.
a colony of
Is
people
it a
connected.
church? Yeah.
Church, but it's homes. It's an isolated community. A community. Okay, I'll say community. He came across a community of people connected to the charity, and at first, like, he was just really charmed by their devotion and by their honesty and love for God.
I've been to their Bible school things, their 1 week thing. Absolutely. Yeah.
And
Charismatic,
yeah, and
attractive.
so yeah, in the process of kind of being wooed there, I think he went there to do like a job or something, and then
Yeah.
start to go to their church service, and you get pulled in for FOSPA, things like that.
Fospa.
French
Sorry,
guy, it means buns.
It's
Oh,
It's
yeah,
a blue
fucking
it's a blue collar
bread.
charcuterie board.
Charcuterie.
Charcuterie. Yeah, like when I see a charcuterie board, I'm like, it's fucking fancy FOSPA. Get over yourself.
Peanut butter and strawberry jam.
Okay. I'm not
like,
the
that's-
only one. Come
I'm like,
on,
that's
you
what
know
we
got
ate on
listeners.
Sundays.
My wife hates Fosba. She's like, that's a pretend meal.
Yeah,
There's nothing there.
and so's a charcuterie board.
Yeah, it's true.
You pretentious, bougie restaurants with your stupid FOSPA. Shut up. Just call it FOSPA. Okay, sorry. I triggered.
My bad.
Obviously, I've got some unresolved FOSPA issues.
That's so good. I want to try one just because. Can your wife bring a FOSPA?
Oh, no,
Can she
no,
bring
no,
a spike
no.
one?
She would not.
No, it's
She is not Mennonite, like, at all.
It's cold cuts. It's buns, like
Oh.
little gherkin pickles, and you've got like peanut butter and jam and stuff you put on your buns. You can make a sandwich if you want to, but it's just
Okay.
it's an easy supper. It's an easy Sunday supper, so nobody has to cook while you're visiting after church.
So it is just lazy. All right. Just one. I guess
It's
I
the
got some-
closest-
I
it's
got
the closest thing we
munchies.
have
I'm
to
sorry.
It's like Hasidic Jews on Sabbath. They
Yeah.
don't do anything that day.
A lot of meal
It's
prep.
all it's a remnant of that. It's
I'm
Sabbath
killing myself
thing.
because you just got out of the rabbit hole and you just jumped head
No,
first.
that was my fault.
And
That was my fault. I'm going to take ownership of that one. All right.
that is
FOSPA.
the number one criticism this podcast gets. It's
I said
nonstop at rabbit hole.
Rabbit trail. Rabbit hole?
No. We say rabbit hole around
That's a
here.
whole different
'cause-
thing.
I don't know. I caught a rabbit. I learned what a new word. So
New one. Okay, go back. Go back. We got
Oh,
this.
anyway, yeah, and it got to the point where he was really interested in joining them, and when he learned what they wanted of him to live with them or to join their church and stuff like that, like it scared the crap out of him.
But
and
did they
he-
promise
So-
a wife? Did they promise
No.
him a wife? They
No,
didn't even
no.
do that.
No. I mean, they're loyal people. They're good to their wives, at least.
No,
as
but
far
did they
as-
promise him a wife? Like, hey, you can have...
Oh, yeah. He totally was just like, yeah. If you come around here, we'll find you a good woman. You can settle down.
Oh, so they did.
But no, they wanted him to sell everything he had and actually give all the money to them.
That's what,
and to
that's
hold
what
him
Jesus
to-
said.
So that's a good point, actually. One of the guys that left that I chatted with for a long time, I don't know, nobody on here knows my background. I sell life insurance. So I was chatting with this guy about life insurance. And he said, I absolutely 100, he's an ex-charity church guy, came from my dad's church, 100% believe you need to have that. He said, because it protects you from people in your church who think because you did a good job with your money, you owe it to them to help them out when they didn't plan for it. And I was like, oh, there's a story here. So we started going down that rabbit hole. And that was exactly what happened is the church said, look, this person is hurting. They have cancer, whatever it is. Obviously, they didn't pray enough, so they got sick. So they needed to have a pile of treatments, and they said, we're going to raise money, and we're going to do it internally, and the church will do it, except there's most of them are fairly not well off.
No.
And so it all fell
so
on
it
this
all
guy.
comes on the guy
and
that
because
has the
he
money.
was a Christian who was in their church, it was his God-given responsibility to care for them. And I don't know how much it was, but it was over $100,000 for sure.
Yeah.
That he gave to help them out. And he got a thank you, and next time we'll see you again. And he said, I'm done. That's not, something's wrong here. So anyway, that is part of it. That is some of what that church entails. It's just a small part of it.
Yeah.
Well,
It's-
and
there's
as
always,
an
there's always,
idea.
it should never be just one thing.
No.
So that
I know, and I
it's
don't.
nice to know
I
there's
don't
more
want to
than
make
one.
this just like a charity lambasting podcast.
Are
where
they
we
around
say
anymore?
everything that they're wrong with?
I think...
If
maybe
they're
in
under
some-
a new name or a new, that's fine. We don't have to mention it. I just don't know if they're.
I
even-
know that they preached really hard that you will know them by their fruits, and eventually they all broke apart. So I guess they
They
own
are,
fruit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, where's your fruit? Hey, fuck. I was gonna say fuck ours, but that's not a fair
Yeah.
representation.
So
of who they
anyway.
might be.
Yeah, like that was when I found out what organization he was dealing with. It instantly rang a bell for me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah, that's where that was.
Yeah, so that just gave me a point of context for what your family was involved in.
So to take that point of context further, at one point a few years back, and I think this was a catalyst for my dad actually kind of getting back to somewhat normal, not all the way, but he's coming back to something. The charity, quote unquote charity church, split from his church because he was going too legalistic for them.
Wow.
He had imported rules and things that their church had to do, And they'd grown to quite a few families. They'd outgrown their church. And it became this big issue, and that's when some of my brothers left too, and they said, it's gone too far. Something is wrong here. And then I think he had to do some real soul searching, and maybe he found out he was a little bit wrong and backed off a bit, hopefully.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a lack of faith when it comes to putting up that many safeguards that you're not able to give any kind of room for discussion, room for dissension. When you don't have any room for dissension, well, surely you're going to find it, because when it comes up, it's going to surprise you and catch you off guard in ways you're not ready for, because you're not polished in your arguments. Your arguments are rough. And so it's really not fair to the person putting them up, because you're like, dude, you are not helping yourself. You're setting yourself up for failure. So, yeah, knowing that there's these many safeguards the guys are putting up without actually understanding it is, it's tough. I couldn't imagine.
No, I can't.
Yes,
imagine.
I can. Yes, I can. I was about to say I couldn't.
Because, that
hold
cult
on.
episode that we did was not in reference to anything going on your side of the, table here.
Absolutely.
It's just funny how there's almost like a playbook. There's common tropes, common behaviors that come along with that. And
well, the attraction, like you said, is community. Number one, we all as humans need community.
Oh, yeah.
And for whatever reason, all of these cult-ish places have amazing community when they all believe what they do for the short period of time it is. They're all pulling on the same rope.
Yeah.
And there's always
want.
a moment, like you almost look back, you're like, oh, there was a golden year,
or
something like that. You're like,
100%.
where it was like firing on all cylinders, and you're like, oh, if it could have just kept like that.
Yeah.
And you try and when you're in it, you try and think, oh, we can get back there.
So
we
what
can
you're
get back there. We can
saying-
get back there, but it continues to spiral further out, and it never comes.
Religion,
like, that's a pipe dream.
Religion is drugs.
Yes,
That's what you're saying. 'Cause you're always chasing
Actually,
the high.
I quite like the R word, religion itself. But I will say that there are feelings that come along with there's feelings that come along with something that you're doing, with a belief, and when you get to the point where you as a community, or you as a person, or especially a leader, is chasing the dragon, at that point you're no longer in the true religion.
Yeah.
You're off in a cult. When you're chasing the dragon, trying to get back and trying to control, trying to grasp
Yeah.
And of course,
the thing that is the Holy Spirit, you're going to find it's like jello in your fingers and keeps squishing out. Like it's
Because you're trying to create something instead of actually living.
You
in
have
the
to
spirit.
be still and let the Holy Spirit come to you. You cannot make the Holy Spirit do what you want.
Because that would make you God.
Yeah, and it doesn't work. It's like vapor. You think you get there. When you see a cloud, you're like, there's a cloud there. Awesome. Or there's a rainbow there. That is a thing. And then you go to it, and it is not there anymore. And then you see it further along. You can trick yourself into this thing.
And chase it and chase it.
And chase it and chase it and chase it until you realize, like, I am so far away from where I should be.
Yeah.
You're chasing a mirage.
Yeah. And then you get so obsessed with it that you ignore things that are truly important.
Yeah.
And wreck your life.
are you guys calling me out for my severe cocaine usage? I just really don't appreciate how you did it. If you're going to call me out for it, just fucking do it now.
Well, when we
Finally, my God, the whole podcast since episode 1 has all been about that. Finally, he clued in.
I don't even like it. It just smells good. All right, just going to put it out there. Never done coke. Just joke. I was going to defend the whole statement of calling religion a drug because when I hear that, I think of Karl Marx saying that religion is the opioid of the masses, or something.
Oh, I wasn't even referencing that. That's a good,
I know, but
that's so
it's
smart.
what I fucking don't even patronize me. But when I hear that, I'm like, oh, it's a red flag. But at the same time, let's chase this thought. And what you're talking about when you're trying to really, I'm like, okay, I hear what you're saying. All right.
And it's not just religion. You can do that with politics.
Well, sociological structures like this.
Yeah. I mean, any sociological structure that you're chasing after can turn into that. It's not. I don't want to just be so pessimistic that I think like every structure is a cult. No, like if you get that point, you're too jaded.
You're too far gone. Like you're gone the other way now.
Yeah, but it's anything can be that. But like there are certain things in culture right now, like right now the opiate of the masses isn't religion, it's Instagram. or TikTok.
TikTok, yeah.
It's your favorite politician that you follow, waiting for bated breath for the next fucked up thing.
Or
that they're
political
gonna say.
commentator. Political commentators. Not
yeah.
even the actual politicians,
Like,
but the people following them.
Right now, that's the opiate
And
of
I'm
the
a
masses.
huge fan. I'm not going to lie. I follow a few, and they are fun. I look forward to what they have to say.
Those are the new religious teams. It's left versus right. It's
Yeah.
MAGA versus, Black Lives Matter. And you can see the faith fervor that these things can drum up too. So nobody's immune from that, even if you think you're religious or not.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting because what's the solution?
Right here. Right? This
Right?
Right here.
I'm gonna sound like a know-it-all and a pretentious douchebag, but common sense.
No, common sense isn't common enough.
I actually wanted to use it as kind of a segue. I didn't stay in the place of left on the side of the road thing. I had to come back to Christ and understand where God loves me, and that's okay. But one of the things we did was a Bible study that really the only thing that truly stuck out to me was there's 3 things in religion. There's something to die for, something to discuss. No, 4, sorry. Something to die for, something to discuss, something to debate, and something to dismiss in all of our arguments and all of our conversations about whatever it is.
Yeah.
And at first it was just about religion. Okay, Jesus is God. He died for us. He saved us. We die for that. That's just part of our. If you don't have that, you're not.
Yeah.
Right. It's not it. Or Chris State. Annihilationism versus eternal conscious torment. Okay, I'll discuss and maybe debate it. I won't throw that out, and I'm not going to die on a hill for that theory.
Yep.
That can be with politics and all sorts of things too. Why is it we all now need to die for every little thing? It's
Yeah.
it's maybe
Every
okay
little
that I
thing.
don't think that the Pierre Polivier is the Messiah.
Oh, he's such
Right?
a douchebag. I'm
or,
sorry.
Or
I've
JT
said,
is
I think I've said it.
Antichrist or whatever. I don't have to die for either side. It's
Yeah.
it's okay to have a middle ground. Did you know that? I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, with
So strange.
quick
Yeah.
one with Pierre Polyev. Everyone's like, I'm a conservative.
say his name
I'm
right.
voting.
I call him Mr. Potpourri. I can't pronounce his name.
I'm from the area. Heck, I even know somebody who helped run part of his campaign trail and some of that shit. And so he was a bit of a womanizer back in the day, apparently. Alleged. I don't know. Anyways, listening to him, I'm like, oh, he's a douchebag. But he's our douchebag.
Yeah, because I'm going to die for that guy. Make Canada
I'm gonna
great
vote
again.
for
Ride or die. Because remember, loyalty above all else is
loyalty.
the greatest
Oh,
virtue.
Fucking getting me triggered, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
You're just
right
trying
now.
to get me
I'm
triggered
trying
on
to.
that one.
So
All
this
right.
is, we're not on video here, but I watched Mike change shades there.
I was accused of disloyalty because I was set.
Cardinal sin, as was I.
I was accused at one point of being disloyal simply because I was on blast. I was on blast in a conversation, private conversation, because that's the way I have my conversations. And
Privately on a podcast.
No, I'm not
okay.
giving any kind of thing. And this guy accused me of being disloyal, and I'm like, I'm loyal to God alone because I was on blast. He was looking for an answer. I'm like, God alone, he is my number one. And I think in my mind it was your love for all others will look like hate compared to your love for me. So my loyalty to him is going to look like betrayal to everything else in my life. Is the way that my mind reacted in this moment. And I was like, being called disloyal to, I hate it. I'm like, I am loyal to a fault where it's almost I've gone against myself.
Yeah, I would say as a friend of yours, you're one of, if not the most loyal person I've ever met.
Yeah.
As a character trait.
To a fault.
Yes.
I would almost put it to a fault.
Yeah,
Yeah.
quite likely. But it's part of the makeup of who you are.
Yeah.
And so when somebody calls you disloyal, I look at them and they lose all credibility in my estimation. It just evaporates entirely. 'Cause I'm like, you don't know this person. You don't know how loyal they are to you, for one, let alone to everybody in his circle. No, it's
Yeah.
you're really out to lunch here, and you're stretching it.
Yeah. And I have put myself in. I know I have put myself in situations where I've gone to bat for people. And even I'm like, no, you're wrong here. I don't care what you think you're saying. You don't know this guy like I know him. And I'm like, even if it's not even 100% true, I did that for a fighter one time. This guy, he wanted to get into fighting. I'm like, I got a great fighter. He's really awesome, and I'm promoting him. And then he goes and he steps in the cage. He does a little bit of training. And the promoter that I was talking to came to me. He's like, "You said he was the greatest." I'm like, "Yeah. I'm trying to get you to take him on."
I've never
What do you
seen
want me
him
to
in my
say?
life. Oh.
I've never seen him fight. I just
I'm not
know
going to
he's
tell you
scary
somebody's
as fuck.
profoundly mediocre to get you to invest in them.
And then the guy went on to be an amateur champion in his weight division. Like, he didn't just sit on the sidelines. He
was
went the distance.
Profoundly mediocre. Good for him.
Profoundly mediocre.
That's good.
No, just like multiple champion.
Yeah, I'm like, and it's one of those things of, no, if I'm in your corner, fuck it, I'm in your corner. I'm getting punched in the face.
Nice.
I'm sorry for trying to trigger you. It was too much fun though. But when you've been through those things, like there is a level of trauma that sits with you for a while. I mean, obviously talking to you, I'm hearing that a lot of the stuff you've kind of let go by the wayside because
Yeah.
a lot of the heat of this stuff happened feels like a lifetime ago.
It does.
I mean, for Mike and I, it's all still pretty fresh.
Yeah. And
Yeah, but we've worked through it. That's the difference.
Trying to at least.
Well, number one, you're talking about it.
Yeah.
So that helps. I didn't talk to anybody for a long time. Instead, I just stuck different people on pedestals because, like we alluded to earlier, people pleaser. So as soon as I didn't have my dad, who was my hero, because that's, when you're growing up, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
When it wasn't him, then I had to do it to somebody else. So it just happened to be the pastor of our church, right?
Yeah.
That's the new religious hero. And then he went and had sex with his secretary, and I went, huh.
Oh, I know that church.
All right. Yeah. Not naming any names.
I don't know his name. I just know
So
the
if
church.
if that's one Christian on that side and that's the other hero Christian, then screw this all, because what's the point?
Yeah.
And yeah. So
Okay,
that's
so how do you get over that?
oddly podcasts. We were talking about this before, actually.
Yeah, we did.
I started listening to Bad Christian, and I would not recommend them to anyone. But at the time, it was exactly what I needed.
That's like our podcast.
Right. So
I don't know.
recommend
I don't
this
know
one.
if that's the case for me. I think maybe they were part of my problem.
But do you think, and this is a question for you, do you think that being part of the problem that led you to that deconstruction was a good thing?
Fair enough.
Because that's what it did for me.
I started listening to them because they were entertaining and
Yeah.
were connected with a band that I listened to a little bit back in the day. So I thought it was kind of neat that I was hearing kind of like inside baseball and what their life was like,
Exactly.
and all that. And they would bring on people to talk on their podcast. At the time, they weren't as far down the line as they are now.
I think we might have been listening at like the same time.
It might have been.
Yeah.
And I could see actually the change there too, right? Like a train of thought diverged by a degree. But at the same time, like listening to some of the guests that they brought on got me thinking about faith in a different way. And I started catching questions and thinking about that and be like, yeah, no, that actually doesn't make a lot of sense. Or that atheist is making pretty good sense there. And I mean, from there, obviously, like those Bad Christian guys, like they're exactly like Mike and I. They talk a lot of shit and they don't really know much. But the rabbit hole that I went down pulled in actual heavy hitters that I started listening to and engaging their thoughts and their arguments and stuff like that. And that's when shit got real.
And I think, and I really respect that about you, is you went and found it. You studied it. You went and got the heavy hitters. You went through some crap. I didn't so much. I just was like, hey, I can ask these questions and it's okay. Like, it's fine. It's not fine. Hold on. How do I say that properly? It's not fine that the pastor went and had sex with his secretary. That's not right. But
Nobody else is following
he's allowed,
that. Yes,
he's
he's
allowed
fine.
to be a
bad.
human. Yeah, he's allowed to be a human, and he can still... Oh, wait. David was the man after God's own heart. He had some issues. Okay, wait a second. I'm okay to doubt and still be a Christian. I won't lose my salvation by asking hard questions. And that's... I felt like for like 6 years probably, it was like all I was being told was just trust. You don't need to know it all now. Just trust. Just trust. Until referencing back that one about debate, the D's, the 4 D's.
Discuss.
Discuss, debate.
Then it was like,
dismiss.
okay, this kind of makes sense. I don't have to agree with every Christian. I don't have to agree with the pastor on everything just to be considered a Christian. I have to know that God died for me. I'm going to heaven because I love him and I want to live for him as much as I can. and the rest of that stuff's all noise.
Yeah.
I didn't have to rip it apart like Devin did, and I've only watched it from the outside a little bit, and I really respect what you've done. So
Yeah, and he
Yeah.
really put himself on the
and you put yourself out there.
put
Yeah,
yourself
I had a
out there.
bad habit of causing myself headache.
But I think with
It
there
would
is
have been a
something
lot easier if I kept my mouth shut.
Yeah, there is something to be said though, working through your story. Jordan Peterson talks about it when he talks about actually
that guy.
verbalizing it. You hate that guy?
I'm just kidding.
Huh. Maybe like that's interesting.
Oh my gosh.
I was gonna have a lot of questions. And we're like, what? All right,
Now turned
they're
into
fucking
Trigger
with
Mike
me.
episode.
How dare you cast aspersion over St. Peterson?
Where he talks about working through your stories and actually verbalizing and talking them through. And it's the same thing of getting that opportunity to sit there and, okay, what did I go through? What was this actually like? What was my experience? Because I built it up in my head in this
Yeah.
one way, but is it actually 100% true? Is it genuine? Because the way you experience something and how it actually happened or can be two different things, which is a weird thing to say, so I'm going to say it again. If I can remember it. How you experience things and how it actually happened aren't always the same.
Oh, that's a very true point. Our sense of reality can be horrifically inconsistent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's why I had to work. I'm like, did I say that right? Yeah, I did.
that was
I'm
said
fucking,
really well. Yeah, very
I'm
well.
fucking smart.
Very, very eloquent. You are of the two Brauns here. You're the brain.
Patronizing fuck. But yeah, so
I feel like I've done some work stroking your ego here on this podcast.
don't worry. I keep deflating it. I'm fine. I won't allow it to get big because I don't. I will not. It's a self-deprecating defense mechanism, and I recognize it for what it is. Yeah. Anyways, so pedestal. How many guys did you put on your pedestal after your dad? Because you went from one to the next. Was there anybody in your adolescence, like before your father, hijacked it?
Before my dad was my pedestal?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
No, there was nothing.
I really don't think so.
Because I know I took my dad off mine because of the early rebellious stages of my life. Of I don't want to be anything like my dad.
Right.
So
In some ways, I feel jealous because you had an actual rebellion in your youth.
Right.
I'm like, I went to Bible school. I was the good kid.
My rebellion was listening to Backstreet Boys and making up a dance.
What?
Shouldn't have admitted that one.
Can you demonstrate? Do you remember it?
No,
Can you
I sure
get the
don't.
Zoom going?
It was just literally like, you cannot listen to music. You can't have rock. You can't have this. So I like closed the door of my bedroom and turned on 98.5, which had Backstreet Boys at the time.
Yeah.
I'm like dancing.
Oh,
It was so bad.
I
So
have-
bad.
I have-
That was my rebellious stage.
All right, I was listening to Ace of Base and Shania Twain.
Okay,
when
thank
in
you.
The
That was-
early '90s. I saw the sign.
Yep.
That was my jam.
Ace of Base, baby. I have this memory of listening to DC Talk's Supernatural album in my bedroom. This would have been when my parents were going to the church that your dad led here in Fort St. John, and the worship leader happened to be there for dinner that night. And I come out of my room, and they're in the middle of a rather intense discussion about the virtues of my musical choices.
Anyone defending you at all?
Yeah, my dad defended. Absolutely. He was there.
All right. I just wanted to
That's
make sure that
amazing.
they weren't like all like, yeah, fuck him.
No, I mean, because like my parents, they would bring me to the Christian bookstore to buy CDs, knowing that.
Oh, your story about the Christian bookstore the other day.
that's right.
That was so good.
brings
I
back
remember
memories so much,
Walking
eh?
into that store all the time and buying.
Yeah, the bookshelf.
I think it was Striper where the wax. There's the album where the wax is
Oh,
peeling
Reborn?
off. Yes, Reborn.
Yeah.
And I remember just kind of looking at that and looking at the guy and being like, I wonder if he knows it's on the shelf. I'm just gonna buy it before he notices. It was so good.
It actually is a really good album.
It is.
I can think of a couple hooks from it right now, and it's like, oh yeah, that one sounds a little Megadeth. Oh, that was classic Striper.
Yeah.
All right.
stuff.
So your parents were defending your music to this guy.
Yeah,
His
but
guest
they
speaker.
were debating listening to things that sounded secular, not just being hymns. Or I remember debates. There wasn't particularly at that table, but I remember discussions and debates about whether or not drums belonged in music because it was rhythmic and not melodic or not harmonic, because the Bible said sing a melody. You have a beautiful harmony. It doesn't say anything about rhythm. Therefore, drums weren't something that belonged in music at all. And you think about that, and, you know, if you're impressionable or very literalistic and trying to give the benefit of the doubt to the expert in your presence, you can say, okay, yeah, I guess maybe so. But you think about it, no matter what.
They didn't mention fucking cars in the Bible.
All music has a rhythm. Like, even the, like, as smooth a melody as possible, it's to a time, it's to a beat, it's to a rhythm. Rhythm is a part of music. It's inextricable.
Yes, but with that logic and with that argument, they didn't mention cars in the Bible, so you better fucking hop on your horse, because they did mention that. Oh, they didn't
So I think that
mention
was
planes.
I think that was considered.
There's the time.
So that was the rock thing was always like any kind of music with drums.
I know,
it was the
that was something
backbeat.
you and I always had solidarity on.
Yeah,
I remember-
Backstreet Boys and DC Talk.
Another, well, Greg, I don't know if you guys, you know Greg.
Oh, we know Greg.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
hardball.
That's
Hardball.
Yeah.
We did a Christmas exchange like the last year we celebrated Christmas before it was deemed the devil's holiday, and we had a cousin's gift exchange, and Greg bought me a Third Day CD. So Third Day, heavy metal, you know, the Nickelback of Christianity, and.
Oh, it's so funny.
And I remember sitting, I listened to it a couple times, and I mean, I liked
Was
it.
there a little bit of guilt? Did you feel a little guilt for
I
listening
felt
to it?
so guilty because my parents said, wait until we can listen to it with you. And it was better than the Backstreet Boys I'd been dancing to. So they sat me down and listened to the album end to end, looking for anything that could be considered secular, and then listening for the beat, because there's a backbeat on rock and roll, and they told me that was, you know, sensual and wrong.
Yeah.
And made me burn the CD. Literally, not like MP3. No, throw it in the fire, burn it.
Just like, make me a copy.
Yeah. So my comment always was, well, what about Psalm 150? That's what I was trying to look up here. You know, praise him with the sounding of trumpet and the harp and the lyre and the timbrel and dancing. Praise him with the clash of cymbals. Praise him with resounding cymbals. And apparently that's not part of their Bibles.
No, they left that part out because that's too...
No. They didn't.
How
Drums
dare
have
you use the
symbols.
Bible against us?
Yeah. Don't speak back.
Yeah, but I mean that
really
was
angry.
perennially that was perennially an issue. Like, you know,
For a
me
long
as
time.
a rock and roll lover and metalhead, you know, that was something until I just stopped giving a fuck. Was always a debate.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it just but that was just the water we grew up in. Like even our other family members, even my parents didn't always understand.
Yeah.
Because like they grew up in a different just spirit, you know. Like
I
there
think
was
that's a good word for it. Yeah, that's
and yeah, for them it was always like, you know, this is what they were taught, this is what they experienced, and so seeing us flirt with this stuff was very uncomfortable for everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so some of them took it and defended like your parents did, or they had to make their own choices about, okay, what is this for our families? My dad just said, nope, throw it all out with the bathwater. I don't care if it's good or bad or what. Just toss it all. Like you said, get rid of the TV for real, because, you know, you might see a commercial during Hockey Night in Canada, and get rid of everything.
So your dad wasn't a hockey fan, or he just
loved,
like...
he actually did. He loved hockey.
So he felt like he was making a sacrifice too then.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Because
For sure.
my dad was
in
not
some ways, I actually have a lot of respect for your father. Like, there's some things
He took a stand and he went with it.
and he
Now that I've grown up and understand it more, I do too.
Yeah.
For sure.
like there was a moment where I was thinking of getting in touch with your father and having a conversation, asking him like, what was this like for you to essentially take your family into a different religious stream? Like, you know, because being somebody that's lost where I was at and was looking for something more, you know, like, it's like, do I do that alone? Do I do that with my family? Do I do that with my son? Do I take them along with me, or do I hold myself hostage because I don't want to bring them with me? Do we split up spiritually? Like all these questions were mulling around in my mind, and I honestly don't have answers for them. And I was like, I wonder what Uncle John would say.
Can I say I'm really glad you didn't? So I'm not sure how late in the episode anybody's listening here, or how personal you want to get. How comfortable are you with just
Hey,
taking this
Let's
down?
just shoot the shit.
Okay.
Go. Get it.
If it gets too far,
I've
to,
literally-
you want to edit, I will edit.
You'll
but
edit it out because we're all drunk.
no, I'm not even close.
No, I know.
But-
I'm not.
I mean, I've shed tears on the podcast.
Yeah, he's sitting there
Okay.
trying to pour whiskey
So-
with the lid still on. We're
This-
fine.
I feel bad because now it's like Mike listening to a family therapy
No,
session.
no. People love this shit. They just don't know it yet.
Your dad and my dad had some stuff way back, right? Like when your parents were going through things and different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When Dad left and your dad, I think they fell out. That would be my understanding, is they fell out a little bit. And there was some hurt feelings, and I remember specifically a family get-together where Dad came. You probably remember, in Grandma and Grandpa's basement, and basically told the whole family that they were wrong. And just
Okay, so that day, I remember the fallout of it, but I remember leaving that family gathering, I don't know, maybe half hour, an hour before that happened.
Oh, you weren't there.
I wasn't there.
Oh, wow.
I've only ever heard, because our family doesn't do what we're doing right now.
They don't talk very well.
So I've only heard references to this
Okay.
family meeting in hushed tones before.
Right.
And
So they wouldn't even discuss it in
Interesting.
after the
Yeah.
fact.
So he basically came in and said everything they were doing was sending them to hell and they better change. And that's like the short version. I can't remember it all. I was mortified as a kid, trying to, oh no, my
You weren't
cousins
a
will
kid.
think I know, I was.
I
older.
was, that was,
Well,
that was,
no, you're right.
I was first year college.
Okay, so yeah, we were definitely a little older.
Yeah, that was,
Either way, there was a big falling out with your dad and my dad because of all the stuff that went on. And I never knew my dad cared about it because he just never acted like he did. Like, he had his church and that was his thing. But your dad eventually one day came through, and I know, I love where he went and came from, like, kind of came back to God, and, he's been pretty strong in that too. But he went to my dad and apologized for the way he had treated him years back when Dad left the regular Christians. That stroked my dad's ego so much.
Oh no.
It was horrible. Because he had kind of come back to starting to be like, okay, maybe I've been taking this too far. And it was like this bias for him where he was like, guess what?
Confirmation
My
bias.
brother came to me and said I was right. And I was right.
but that's
And
that's not exactly what happened.
Of
in
course
that.
not. But that's what he saw.
Oh, that,
So
that
that's the
disap-
stuff that frustrates
Oh,
me.
that
I told you
disappoints
this
me.
becomes a family
Yeah.
therapy
that
session.
disappoints
Yeah.
me so much. Not just because that's something that your dad took from that, but it disappoints me so much because okay,
It's not how it was at
that's
all.
I hear you say that and I'm like, oh, that's not John talking, that's narcissism.
Right?
That's
That-
exactly what
Unfortunately,
any
have been-
person that is dealing with narcissism
Yeah.
would take away from that. And I know people, too, very strongly in particular, where that's exactly what they would say. And in fact, I've heard them say verbatim the kind of thing. As soon as somebody in good faith who doesn't think like they do approaches them to try and mend a fence,
Exactly.
Even
It's not-
apologize for any kind of
it's-
wrongdoing that they've
yeah,
done. They're like, hey man, I'm sorry for
exactly.
the way
Yeah,
I reacted
they
to
don't
this. Not
hear
saying
that.
you're right. I'm
Yeah.
saying I'm sorry for the way I acted
Yeah.
in this session.
yeah, they hear that. And instead of hearing the words that are coming out of the mouth, they hear, I am vindicated.
Yeah.
I was
For
right.
everything. I was right.
am on the right path. Yeah.
That's
It sucked
that's-
when I heard
that
that.
Are you getting triggered there, Devin?
yeah, I am.
Well, that's why I said, where do you
Because-
want to go on this? I'm sorry, but
I am triggered by that because when a guy is like that and
Yeah.
when a guy like that has authority, they use that. For the people that didn't see that conversation,
Exactly.
for the people that didn't see the heart that came with it, they didn't hear the words that were said.
All they heard was
All they
vindication.
hear from one side a different day is, I was vindicated. See, all of you that are doubting me, I'm right.
Yeah.
And I always will be.
yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, not with that force, generally.
Pretty close.
Sometimes-
The spirit's
Okay,
there.
I'm trying
the
to be-
spirit is there.
I'm trying to be generous. But, okay, I've heard that tone.
Yeah. You've heard that
and
spirit.
I've heard people say, I guess he is.
Yeah.
Okay. And take that as their point of data moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This guy was right then, he was right then, and he was right then. Even though I see, even though there's smoke all around us, and I don't see the fire, I still hear the firemen saying, it's all okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, sorry.
No,
no.
That's why I asked permission to share that before I did.
And
Because it sucked for me to hear it from my side going, I thought you were getting back to where you, at least some kind of central ground.
yeah.
So-
Because you got to be centered. I think that's one of the reasons why you'll see me push for a self-deprecating humor. I'm not going to sit here and jack off my ego. Is the best way I could put it.
I'm so glad you closed your pants.
And just sit here and be like, I'm smart, or this is what I see, and because no, fuck, I'm wrong in so many ways. So I'm going to constantly, even if it's a little self-destructive in some areas. I'm like, no, I'll take that little self-destruction to make sure that I'm centered. I'd rather be centered. I'd rather not be that narcissistic douchebag that just thinks they're right all the time.
Yeah, so if I would have gone to talk to him with that question in mind, it could have sparked a whole thing that I would have been unaware of.
I think it would have. You would have maybe got. Yeah, I mean, he's eloquent. He's a good preacher, and he would have told you what you needed to hear. Who knows where you would have gone? But it would have sure been an interesting story to hear that from the other side.
Hey,
I
but
think
could you go into it now with good faith, though? Could you go and still ask that question and be like, hey, I got a question? But then,
I don't know. I think
you
at
could.
the time, I was very, very much in that. No, I'm exploring. Not looking for answers. I'm looking for data.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I necessarily, at that time, I don't know. I think I would have been swayed for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even put off by the answer. But I would have hated to find out after the fact that it was used for something other than what it was. Or
So I had this heathen come up to me and ask me a question, and I led him in the way of the Lord.
It was way too accurate.
Yes.
I don't know. It sucks. It sucks when you're trying to be humorous or be like the Babylon Bee and you get things right.
Yeah.
Do you listen to their podcast at all?
I do not. I follow them on Facebook and I watch some of their YouTube stuff.
Their podcast is not bad.
There's so many podcasts,
chill.
man.
I
That's the
know.
problem.
I've had to
many
cut
podcasts.
a bunch out because I'm like, nope, too much. Nope, don't have the time for it.
I have a hard time listening to certain podcasts. Anything too much like what we're doing, I can't do anymore.
Yeah.
Since we started,
Interesting.
it's too easy to parrot.
Yeah.
Or to follow a line of thought, or to be like, oh, this is what these guys are talking about. Now I've got so many thoughts on it, and then you just jump on a bandwagon
Right.
of topics.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of nice that we get to do this where we're like, no, we're talking about what we have around us. We're not doing hot takes. Oh, I fucking hate hot takes. But at the same time, I really want to do them.
Well, it's funny because it's like nobody
control.
else is going to have this conversation.
No.
Like, this is our personal stories. That's why I love what you guys are doing, too.
Yeah.
The Brotherhood episodes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't even know what we're going to title this one. It's fucking Triggered. Triggered. Cults 2. Cults 2, the triggering.
So I have a question for you, Devin.
Yeah, sure.
So now you've gone kind of through a bunch. You're on. We'll call it for now the other side.
Okay.
What says you're not going to go through it again?
Nothing. I am
comfortable are you
very
with that?
susceptible.
So is there any confidence in salvation then?
I would say so.
Yeah. It's all the stuff around it.
Okay, let me try and process. So are you asking me then, like, what's my confidence in not getting sucked into another cult-like scenario, or
Sure.
Charismatic leader or...
Yeah, or maybe even just being like, yeah, this is all bullshit.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's probably
back into a deconstruction.
Back into a deconstruction and be like, I went through this once already, but this just doesn't satisfy me. I'm gonna see ya.
Okay, no, that's a fair question.
Buddhist now. Fits my Braun belly better.
It does. I'd look great in one of those robes.
He would.
Yeah, that's a good question. No, I am not confident that I won't go through another scenario like that. In fact, I think if I ever get to the point where I think, nah, I'm good now, I'm probably more susceptible for it than ever.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to explore and to try and live a life where the freedom is there to think for myself and to ask questions. They won't always be the same questions, but doubt is always going to be a dark friend for me.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I want it to be there or not, it is always there. And in some ways it's comforting, in some ways it's fucking scary.
Well, it's got to be a little scary because you don't have the same level of circle that you did before, as far as I can tell. Well, I'm here. I'm never going anywhere because fucking I won't. But at the same time, one of the things that I saw that helped in your last deconstruction was the people you had around you that
Yes,
were like, yeah,
100%.
we're not fucking going anywhere.
No, the community
The community.
that was there,
That dynamic has
that
changed.
dynamic has changed. And if I were to go through if I was to go through another scenario where I was considering apostatizing, it would be different than it was last time because the community level isn't there the same way that it was. So in some ways that was actually, it was a bit of cocoon for me. It was comforting to have people there, even if the context for it was something that was a little, in the end, not where I needed to be.
That's similar to what I said when I didn't go off the deep end when I left. Because there was the people around me that said, no, you're not going there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have, I think, and again, I'm making assumptions here. I think you have a better understanding of who you are
100%.
in Christ than I did at that point. I was like,
I didn't mean to say
100%.
I have a better.
I am such
I have
a better person
idea
than
who
you.
I am in Christ now than I did in that time.
Yeah, now too. But even with the people around you, like, if I didn't have those people, I would have gone 100% gone. But even when I came through that, even though the people were around me, I think I leaned on them and other people's experiences in Christ than on my own until well later, lots later.
Yeah.
Now, and I hate to say this because it's usually a good trigger to get something to happen. Maybe I'm putting something on you too, Mike, but I see more confidence in you're just like, this is the way it is. Nothing's going to change it. I feel like I'm a little more along that line where it's like, there's these baseline things that I don't think can be shaken, and that's why I want to knock on wood right now. It's like,
Sorry, this is MDF.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you find right here. This little
there's
end table,
so
that's the
many
closest
things
thing.
that I'm like, I don't really care. They don't matter. Like,
Well-
the peripheral stuff, but there's this one piece that's like, that doesn't change.
Yeah, we actually had a similar discussion tonight when Devin was going through it. Because Devin's like, Mike, I don't want to drag you down with me. You were worried about
Yeah, I didn't
me
want to talk to
struggling.
anybody.
He didn't want to talk to anybody.
So you mentioned that on the deconstruction episode, I think. Something to that effect, where I don't want to drag you down with me. And to me, that was a thing going, I know maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Because if you're saying I don't want to drag somebody else down with me, like that's
Yeah,
you're suggesting that maybe you think there's something right with what the other person is already doing.
Oh,
Okay. Well,
a subconscious biases.
to respond to that.
We might have shifted to part 2. Sorry, guys.
Okay, fine. Fuck it. Let's do it. To respond to that, I will say that my thought was not, I don't want him to lose his salvation in Christ at that time. My thought was, I hate every bit of what this feels like and the potential consequences that will come if I accept atheism to be true.
Right.
And I don't want to lose everything. I don't want to lose my wife. I don't want to lose my friends. I don't want anybody to feel what this existential pain feels like. Because it was, like, not physically painful, but it was agonizing. It was the worst 2 years of my life. Bar none.
So far.
So far.
Why would you say that?
Thank you. I needed that. And in my mind, I was thinking, I don't care if I'm 100% right. I don't want him to have to go through this.
That makes sense.
He's good where he's at.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to let you go through it alone. And I think that would have been far worse. I don't know about worse, but worth the risk in my book.
Yeah.
It really, and I was like, no, like,
Because you're loyal to a fault.
fuck.
But that is like, okay, outside
Yeah.
of the cult thing, that's what and especially I've said this, like, I don't mean it in a sexist way at all. We need that as men.
Yes.
To have that person that's like, yeah, I'm your brother in Christ, or brother, whatever it is. I don't need anything else out of this except I'm going to be there for you.
Fuck. Okay. If you're listening to this right now, I want you to understand that what he just said is true loyalty. That is what loyalty is.
Yeah.
It's not following for following's sake. It's not obedience for obedience sake.
Yeah.
It's not saying, no, you're wrong. It's just being there because you love them.
Well, yeah, look at what Job went through. I know Job's not a literal story, it's a figurative story, but still, the people that were there with him, they sat there with him for days, and then they still turned out to be the guys that are like, what the fuck are you doing wrong? And so, but at the same time, when you analyze every single angle of something and you're like, okay, something's not adding up, we got to figure it out, what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so,
just being here, I'm going to ride with you until you're through this.
Yeah.
That was like, I'll never forget it, man.
Yeah.
And the danger of that whole thing is now we're just circled it right back. We crave that even if it's fake. And that's how a charismatic leader can fuck us all up.
And I think that's a big part of
Yeah, as soon as you get somebody...
big part of the fuckery, it was the fact that it was a charismatic leader that led him into this. And when that guy turns out to be not who he said he was... Thing is, I've always been able to recognize pedestals, and when I put somebody on it and be like, okay, no, I need to bring that person off because he's gonna fucking fail, and I need to continually reanalyze it and re-bring it back to Christ, because in the early days of our time with the organization that we were part of, I always had a kickback effect of, he said something, I don't agree with this part. Mm-hmm. And you'll remember the very first sit down we had when we listened to one of his things, and I was like, I don't agree with this part. Hey, Job might have something to say about this. Hey, and I have this thing. It's not always good, but it is part of what I do with this oppositional defiance disorder that I recognize in myself, where I need to kick back because it's just fun.
Can you see that maybe us Brauns need a little more of that?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a reason that we go together like peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah. And so having that and knowing that I need to constantly recenter it on Christ and recenter it off of even a secular guru that I see as Jordan Peterson, he's not on a pedestal to me. He's another dude. He had a drug problem. I pity the guy for the drug problem that he had because it was an allergic reaction to a drug that shouldn't even be legal.
Right.
And so, I need to take him off the pedestal. I need to take every other speaker. I need to take Mark Driscoll. Fortunately, he faded off the pedestal. He was on a pedestal for me.
That was in that same episode, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So I was listening to that going, he changed my life.
He did.
I think it was his grace, I forget what it was exactly.
His
but
Grace Sermon series that he
Grace
had there,
Sermon series, I don't know what it was.
Yeah. He was one of the pedestal guys.
Absolutely a
For me
pedestal
too.
guy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But he didn't get knocked off that pedestal, and I didn't take him off. He faded.
Oh, no.
He was just no longer there because his pocket.
he swan
but
dived
that's
off
just because I didn't see that though. I didn't see it. Now looking back, I'm like, I was saved in a lot of ways because for me he was a bit of a pedestal holder. Mm-hmm. And I'm
actually
going to
seeing his swan dive. It's like for me too. Like he faded from my sphere of influence, but I still kind of paid attention. But like seeing the swan dive that he took. I said to my wife, like, it was, I don't know, maybe a couple days after he resigned from his church, I was like, honey, this is what's happening to the club. She was like, no. I'm like, it's going to be maybe a decade down the line, and then we're there.
Yeah.
Like that was actually one of the things that was the first red flag for me, was actually watching what happened to Mars Hill. That was still before any deconstruction time, before
Yeah.
asking questions, before having issues with the guy. I was like, I just saw
Yeah.
just a big red flag and had this intuition that, oh, we're doing that. We're just behind the curve.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I recognize is it's one thing to put a guy like that on a pedestal and have him up there. It's another thing I need to sell his shit. As a leader in this organization, I hear what he's saying, I don't agree with it, but I have to sell it anyways. And it's a betrayal of conscience, and when you're forced to do that over and over and over and over again, at some point you're just like, I can't take it anymore. And there is a existential crisis that goes along.
Well, yeah, because
With
even at that point, even
sacrifice.
in the defiance, even in the knowing that they're not on your pedestal, in a roundabout way, you're still in the same spot they wanted you to be in.
Yeah.
And you're like, what have I become?
You
Yeah.
wait till they're gone, you pack up your Civic, and you leave.
What year was your Civic? Just out of curiosity. I wonder if we had the same one.
1993.
94.
Yeah, Civic SI hatchback.
Yeah, I didn't have the hatchback. I had the coupe, and it was
I remember you had
purple
you had a little space heater hardwired into it that you had in your passenger side.
yeah. So when you plug it in the winter, it's still warm at minus 40.
Nice. That's a good idea.
It's genius.
I did that with a couple trucks, and I love that little car. Yeah, I really do think that the conversation that we've had, we've been able to circle back to it. We can have the family, we can have because there are many sides to the same coin, right? The deconstruction wasn't in and of itself a lone part of his life. It was involved with this aspect of a cultish personality that went along with it. So yeah,
In some ways, losing my faith kind of almost saved me from being fully drawn in. Oh, sorry, I'm getting away from the microphone. John, I know you heard that, and we're like, levels, guys. Sorry, I was saying.
you were saying how it saved you from being
in some way, I almost feel like that time of loss of faith is almost something where God was like, here you go, you need this.
you need this.
So there's a Bad Christian episode with the trans woman. Did you ever listen to that one?
I cannot recall.
Okay, so they were talking about a question that I don't think there's an answer to. If you die during that moment of deconstruction, whatever it is, what happens? And so this guy was a guy, then he transitioned to a girl, then he found Christ, transitioned back, went into male prostitution, drugs, like everything that you could possibly do it. He made a commitment to Christ well before any of this happened, and came back to Christ after it all happened. And his question was, and he was like, I listened to his testimony, I was like, wow, like so incredibly different. And you go Google him and look up his picture, and it's like, wow, okay, yeah, that's exactly what I thought you'd look like. But his question was like, okay, what happens if I had crashed my car, or I had overdosed, or anything had happened in between? And I know it's a theological question that's way off a rabbit trail.
No,
But
there's there's an
I
interesting
think
rabbit hole there.
what Devin's story is what he needed to get to where he is today, even though it sucked. Like, look at all the stories of Jonah and Job. Like, everybody goes through really dark
Yeah,
times. Maybe not Mike. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Everybody goes through this really tough stuff, but it makes you who you are now. And I know it's a what if that probably, but we don't know.
No.
So you see the guy, he was a solid believer. He fell away and died.
well, that's not the thing. Is
It happens.
that does happen.
It does
That's the
happen,
thing.
yes.
They're out there. It's just we don't get to see the second half of that story so
Yeah.
often, because we see somebody who comes from a time of faith out of it, and we don't get to see the back
We
end.
don't see
and
the
that's
reconciliation.
Yeah,
So-
good word.
We discussed
White collar.
We discussed my reading of The Great Divorce in our last episode, so I know guys listening to this, you're thinking like, "Oh, geez, Devin, get over it." But what I love about that book was that was Lewis's imagining of those conversations that happened after that fact. And yeah, that's it's a question that ultimately we can't answer. But I mean, in some ways you can light your imagination up a little bit to kind of suss that out. If I were to think what would happen to me if I died 4 years ago?
Right.
What would happen if I wrecked one of my motorcycles when we were out on a run?
Because that
When
never happens.
Exactly, it never happens. But just imagine, what if I ran head on into a semi-truck after missing a curve?
Almost seen that one. Not from you, but
Yeah,
somebody else.
another brother, right?
Another brother.
Fuck, motorcycles are dangerous. You should all do them. Anyway.
Yeah, where...
So, as I'm imagining my own life, I mean, you can only ever see things retrospectively.
Mm-hmm.
And a thing C.S. Lewis said was, grace or damnation is they're both retrospective. In the end, the damned will realize they were always in hell. And in the end, the saved will see everything that they've been through, every sin, every failure, every trial, as a glory that led them to where they're at.
Right. Wow.
You know, it's a powerful thing to think about. So, looking back now, I could look back at this incredibly dark time in my life and see, no, that was a salvific tool that God was using on me.
Yeah.
Not to say he was always predestined me to be saved, because I don't believe that. But looking back, I can see, okay, I was in a place where he knew I needed this. And even though he knew it would hurt, used it as a tool, used it as grace. And I can look back and think, man, freaking awesome. Like, how many people get to go through that in the way that I did?
Where some people will be like, I wish I never went through that. You're like, no, fucking great.
That was, I look back
I walked
and think,
through the valley of the shadow of death.
that was the worst time in my life, bar none. I said that a couple minutes ago, and also think, what a great time.
I'm so thankful that it happened.
Thankful
Wow.
that it happened. I'm so thankful I
don't think Joe would-
experienced all the things I experienced. Like, it's exhilarating.
Yeah.
It is.
But I can say the same, because even though it feels like rejection of your full family and you can't, you're not
There's
part
also
of
that.
a family, right?
Yeah, no,
It
there's a
wouldn't, I would
huge-
not have wrestled with the questions that I did, because it would have been easy.
Yeah.
Like, it would have just been, oh, okay, this is what I do and what I am. And I would have died and realized I never actually believed, and then been in hell.
Yeah.
If,
So,
if you believe in heaven or hell,
to get back to the hypothetical question, what would happen if I died at that moment?
Yeah.
Because
Really hope
then
I'm
it
right
wouldn't
about
have been retrospective.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say, I never outright denied Christ.
Mm-hmm.
That was a line.
That's exactly what the story I was saying. That's what he said.
That was
I
a
never-
line I never took. I never spat in God's face and said, I am now turning from you.
Mm-hmm.
You're dead to me.
yeah.
Or I don't believe in you, magic sky fairy, woof, and all the world was material.
I think calling him a magic sky fairy is not going to help.
There was a moment where I was like, why am I praying to a magic sky fairy? I mean, those are questions that I asked, but every question I asked was honest.
Mm-hmm.
It was never me rebelling. And even in the darkest time, even in the time when I was the most convinced God was real, if the lights turned off at that moment and I faced that semi-truck and just lights out, no chance to repent, no chance to be like, last minute prayer or anything like that, I honestly think I would have, if there's like a disembodied soul state before judgment, because like a lot of that stuff is very fuzzy to me, I think I would have undergone something like purgatory, something like purgation, not a fake in between, not an in between place between heaven and hell where bad people are punished and have a chance to repent or things like that. As much as, like I said, because everything will always be hell if you're damned, and everything will always be heaven if you're saved. But there probably would have been some kind of drawing out of everything that I was going through and realization of where I actually am. Realization of every bit of this is an honest question and an honest search for God.
Be like a fast forward button.
Fast forward,
As you hit.
or maybe like this,
Yep.
maybe this drawn out, just eternal, what seems like forever, even if it was just a minute. Like, I don't know, years like 1,000, thousands like a day.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But
I can just see some pastors rolling over right now.
None
Going,
of them are listening. None
All
of
right.
them.
All right.
A pastor turn. I think that's one of the reasons I swear so much, is to scare off any pastors that
Yes.
might listen.
yeah, but I think I would have undergone some type of purgatory. It's a purgation of whatever sin is still there when you die, which we all will have in some way. I don't think the tree just lays as it lies.
Yeah, but for that,
my faults, my faults can't live in God's presence,
No.
right?
but
so-
wouldn't my worry is that too many people are going to adopt that for themselves in an unrepentant. So they lived a completely unrepentant life, and they're going to
And
turn
I
around
think-
at the very last, literally moments of seconds of nothingness, and they're going to just have this entire lifetime of decision making.
Honestly, I think if you're doing it with that plan in mind, you're toast.
You're kind of what he at
You're
first said.
toast.
You'll figure it out. I'm damned. Whoops. That was a mistake.
Because
I just hope nobody adopts that life.
Okay, the tree doesn't, it doesn't sit as it lies, but at the same time, the life you live, like, is kind of gonna be the attitude you take to the afterlife, right? So if you're thinking, I really, really want to make sure I live as much life as I can, as much sin as I can, and get, as far as I can before I think my number's up, and then flop over. Like, you're always, like, at that point, your heart is, I want to bring as much hell into heaven as I can.
I mean, we're all parents here,
Yeah.
right? We know when our kids say sorry and they don't mean it.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine God's dumber than I am.
No,
Yeah. I hope
it's not going to work.
Yeah, so like I think there would have been some kind of experience of seeing resolution to the wrestling.
I just don't. I really don't want to give somebody the excuse of like, well, I was listening to these guys and these guys made a very clear point that I got the last second. Like I got up until that. It's like, no, don't live that life. Do
No,
not.
I honestly think if you do that, you're toast.
Yeah.
Annihilated, hell, whatever.
Annihilated.
You're done.
You heard that, Chris. So no, and then that's a big part of it. You're going to make the decisions you're going to make.
Yeah,
but at the same time,
if you die literally being like, I don't know if God's real.
I'm going to live as if
you're-
there is no God. Not even
But
if I
you're-
don't believe that God's real. I'm going to
but-
live as if there isn't one.
No, see, there's a difference. Honestly searching
Yeah.
versus living with the idea that I can maybe save this at the last second.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Like,
like,
you're
in
not
one way,
intentionally-
you're looking for God, and if you're looking,
Those
God's
who
gonna
seek-
be found.
He will find.
But if
Yeah.
you're just being like, all right, I'm gonna take this with me, I'm gonna take that with me,
Exactly.
and you think like, oh, last minute, I'm not gonna make it. Try to get rid of the stuff out of my pockets real fast. Sorry,
Yeah.
I
you
know,
missed,
it's such a
you missed your
hypothetical.
trajectory velocity.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a dangerous way to
But
live.
So like purgatory to me is actually a very, very intriguing idea. I actually quite like it.
I still sit on the there is no heaven.
There is no heaven.
Yeah.
Okay, this is interesting. I
Okay.
heard obviously I listened to the Chris Date and I'm
the-
lean that way, but I don't know about the heaven part.
No, imagine if there were no heaven. You are only leaving behind your lineage and the life that you've lived. Like, you're living not for anything greater than yourself. You're living because you know it's the right thing to do. I don't need a reward. I don't need any kind of gratification of any good that I've done. I want to raise my kids so that they treat others the way that they want to be treated, and they raise kids that treat others the way that they want to be treated. That there is nothing, maybe, and if I could do that completely selflessly, because I want to just make the world a better place. Because I want to live a life that if there were a heaven, I'd be there. But if there isn't one, I'm okay, because it's not about me and what I get, but how good I can make everything. Not just by giving everything away, but if I can just have this selflessness. But you need to have a little selfishness to take care of your kids, because if you're just giving everything away, you're not being a good steward of the things that you've been given. So you're not making the world a better place, because you're just self-destructive to everyone around you. And so, can I live a life that brings glory to God, or brings my family into a higher way of living and understanding without any reward for myself? And if I can do that, if there's a heaven, I know that I have done what it takes. And if there isn't one,
I will say right now,
it's fine.
That's salvation by works.
Yeah, I know it's terrible. It really is.
Like, there's no grace there. But
that's the thing. They can't
that
do
is,
it.
if there's heaven, I've damn well earned it.
Oh, yeah.
So when you said heaven as a reward, that was what, as instantly you probably saw me go, wait, hold on. I don't think it is a reward versus
punishment.
Versus punishment there. Yeah. It's like salvation is God saved us. That's what it says over and over. Saved us. Not reward for, hey, you did something good. Good job, kid.
Yeah.
It's adoption and saving. That's a whole different thing than
Yeah.
you earned a reward.
Yeah. And again, it's me working through some thoughts and working
that's
through
what we're
things.
doing.
And I'm not, but at the same time, there's no action that I can do that's big enough to earn it. Yeah. I recognize that. There's nothing that I can do that would ever
Except
earn
for the
it.
prayer.
Fucking
Make sure you pray that prayer.
Fuck, I hate that.
You got it.
Yeah, that's the last minute thing.
I even raised my son that
Dear
way.
Jesus.
He's like, my son, when he chose to become a Christian, I'm like, this is not a prayer saying asking Jesus into your heart. Yeah. This is you making a commitment to live for him.
Yeah.
This is not about you didn't do anything. You are making a choice now to live for him. And yes, there's certain levels of actions that
not
have
live
to
for the
come with
potential hope that maybe there's a him.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, yeah, and I'm like, no, you're going to live as if he's there and he did do this for you. Now, how are you going to live in this moment? There has to be a balance of works. I really do believe that. You have to do something, because if you're not doing anything,
okay, so
that's the other side of the coin, right?
Have you read The Secret or The Answer?
No.
So the idea, though, you can manifest whatever. I was thinking about that actually today. So you can manifest. You can just sit around and think, I'm going to be the richest guy in the world, and boom, you'll be the richest in the world. It doesn't work.
No.
It absolutely is impossible.
Because I'm super tall.
Well, at that way,
right?
Yeah, you'd find out if you could manifest whatever you want.
Yeah.
You would find out it would not be nearly what you thought it would be.
Faith like a mustard seed, man. Just, you can do it. But the idea there is what you said with action. So is James, faith without works is dead. And so it's same as... It's that whole idea. Okay, that kind of made it more real to me what faith and actions actually means. It's not living and doing these things to earn my salvation.
Yeah.
It's, I believe this, so I do this.
Yes. And I think that is kind of what I'm leaning towards. But at the same time, am I going to tell somebody there's no heaven? No.
I don't think you can if you read the Bible.
No, you can't. No, that's the thing. And I won't.
The hell question, there's some interpretation things, but the Bible's like, I'm going to prepare a place for you. That's pretty obvious. I don't know. I don't know.
I recognize it, but at the same time, I'm like, he had to say a lot of things that I don't feel like he should have had to say. Like, I don't know, love your neighbor as yourself. You shouldn't have to say that. Hey, don't kill. Hey, don't covet your neighbor's shit.
Well,
these are things you shouldn't have to say.
Why not?
Because it doesn't go well for you. If you don't do this, life will not go for well. If you have to say, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, body, soul, and then you have to say, and love your neighbors. If you're loving God, you're going to love people. What?
I don't know. There's lots of societies that had that very, very opposite ethic and were extremely successful.
Yes, but they don't last.
Yeah, but ours don't last.
Yeah, we'll see. You're debating from a lack of evidence. We haven't seen it not happen.
There's been lots of Christian civilizations that haven't lasted. Like yes, the Christianity has, but lots of the social systems haven't.
Yeah,
I forgot. America is Christian. I totally forgot that Christianity and American are the same thing.
Of course, it's the same thing.
I'm sorry. I was coming from a different.
I would
perspective.
I guess I would argue from the aspect of like what Ben Shapiro argues is it's a society built up off the shoulders of the Judeo-Christian ethic or the Judeo-Christian belief system. It's not Christian anymore in really any discernible way other than its bones are built on that kind of 10 commandments. Their bones are built on that love thy neighbor as thyself, and like that was there.
It's a golden rule.
Well, it's like my kids saying they're Mennonite now. It's like, no, you eat the soup. That's it. Soup.
Good soup. Good
soup.
sausage.
Fospa.
You got that Mennonite sausage.
Yeah. You associate with these things that are Christian doesn't make you Christian. Like,
well, that's why I
will just say, like, trying to,
you're not a Christian just because you're in my household.
Yeah. Trying to live that life, though, as a nation, always fails.
Yes.
Trying to live that life personally, like, it kind of always fails. So you can't argue from the because it's the best thing to do line of logic unless you're giving it existential or metaphysical stakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because, like, I mean, there's plenty of sociopaths that do fucking awesome.
Yeah. That's why they're
why shouldn't they be sociopaths and narcissists? Because it's going pretty well for them.
Yep. Yeah. It does allow you to make a lot more well thought out decisions because you're not taking into account, people.
Yeah.
Exactly.
and consequences and everything else. It's like, no, let's just look at the best decision possible. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. And yeah, it makes for somebody. And if you can be charismatic to boot, I think that's was your dad a charismatic guy?
Like charismatic as in charismatic
like
movement?
Somebody you could like somebody that you could look to and be like, that guy got his shit together. I want to follow him. Like somebody that people like were drawn to.
Well, like I think I'm a good salesman, and I think I get that from my dad. Not because I can sell something, but because I build trust quickly. He does that incredibly well.
Because I think you imagine he comes with a certain level of sincerity.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. For sure. And that it's just, everybody has a certain gift. That's something I think I got from him. He builds trust incredibly quickly, and then loyalty. Like, you would be so loyal to him, Mike.
I'll never meet him. He'll hear this podcast and he'll never want to meet me. Yeah. If he ever this one.
That's one of if I'm going to sound really spiritual right now, that's one of the graces you've been given is your defiance disorder, as you put it, because it keeps you from being too loyal to the wrong people. It really does.
Yeah.
Like, it's, even though I think sometimes it goes a little too far, I also be like, no, he needs that.
So not charismatic.
It is a learned thing. It is. It's not something I'm like, oh, I'm just a dick. It's like, no, it's you need to butt up against things because you got to see if they're real, right?
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you need to ask questions. You need to play, for a lack of a better term, the devil's advocate. If you want real answers, if you want to see if something has legs.
And if you're not allowed to ask questions, red flag. Like if I can't ask questions.
Yep.
Even if I do it in the most, that is one of the things that I was able to do for a long time is to ask questions in a way that would get you really mad at me, but you couldn't really get mad at, like you had no grounds to, let's say, kick me out or demote me in any way. You couldn't bring me down because I'm like, no, I asked a question. I did it in the right way. Can't do anything about it.
I never wanted to.
Not you.
Oh,
talking about
okay.
Others. Not you. I'm looking at you.
I don't remember these talks.
No, not you. Other people, they know who they are. And I could ask questions, but I would never do something in a way that would publicly make you look like shit. I'd be like, no, I'm going to ask you directly. I'm going to say, hey, what about this? And even if it's not a bad question, it was just a sincere question. And there's no way to punish me for a private conversation. And if you are, it's just going to make you look like shit. So that's.
Do you think that people from your club listen to your podcast now to be like, what are they doing?
I don't know. There was one episode that we did when it came out. We had an awful lot of downloads come from Florida, and that's
Florida,
where
yeah.
things are kind of based out of. So
Oh, really?
I wonder if that one. Has,
So you can see.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I can see. What stage
I
it is
wonder
and
if that
everything.
one particularly caught their interest, but I
Yeah.
don't think that's something terribly. I don't think it's something that's really been a big problem.
Yeah.
No. If anything, they're just being told not to listen to it, and some of them are
Right.
good sheeple, and they do exactly what they're told.
I wouldn't even be
So-
surprised if that has never come up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised at all
Well,
if that's just not a thing.
well,
We're
they
not
would-
that big a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they just, if we don't bring it up, no one will ever talk about it. That's another
Yeah.
thing. It could be. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
maybe we're just not that important,
Oh.
and they just, if we don't shine a light on it, because if they say don't listen to it, you got guys like me that are gonna be like, no, I gotta fucking listen.
That was something my wife brought up about my dad's church. Was she said when somebody joins, or like you mentioned, the people that join the charity thing, they talk about them like these stars, what happened. But if somebody leaves, you never hear about them again. It's,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just gone. There's no talk. It doesn't happen anymore.
That's our America. It's not
I can't
huge
even-
numbers.
Oh, you've got the metrics in front
I
of
got
Jesse
the
there?
metric. It
Yeah,
just kind of shows the states. You see colors.
Yeah.
That's our states. We can see exactly how many downloads in each state, and
yeah.
it's fine. Our better numbers are in Alberta and BC. That's where our big numbers hit.
Where your people are.
That's where my people are.
So yeah, for us, it was there's in the club culture, there's a number of ways you can leave, but traditionally you fall into one or two camps:
And we're going to be doing an episode on that too.
out good or out bad.
So out good as you died.
No.
Okay.
No, out good is being out
Only
is,
if they
is
can
leaving
use
the
you.
club in good standing. It means there's a mutual respect left between two camps, and anybody is free to interact with you as much as they want to, as much as you want to. There's no restrictions on it. And then there's out bad, which is no contact. Like basically they're dead to you.
So in throwing it back to my situation, that would be the excommunicated.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, 100%.
you
It's-
didn't agree with something we said. Nobody talked
No,
to
no,
them
no.
anymore.
Yes
you
and
don't
no.
go to their house.
Yeah,
for
I will
dinner.
say yes and no. To give clubs their due, properly understood, excommunication or being out bad is something that's supposed to be reserved for people that are rats or cops if they're found out to be undercover or anything like that and that have infiltrated.
Right.
Or if you have messed with another member's family or old lady, or if it's found out you're a pedophile.
Oh,
or,
pedophile's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a number of things like that where it's like, no, you've done something egregious here that, we can't abide by. They're like respect gone, love gone. Like you can't come back from what you did. And it's either to protect the club or sometimes even to protect you.
Yeah.
All right, we got bubbly water and flat water if anyone's thirsty for just water.
Yeah, sure. I'll take some. I'll take the bubbly, please.
Bubbly.
Yeah, love that stuff. Unfortunately, the world doesn't exist in a way where all tools are used the way they are intended. And
Yeah.
sometimes,
They'll just say worse shit about you, like, "Oh, this guy he's an abuser. He abused his wife and kids and everyone around him."
so they'll say something about a guy without ever backing it up or proving it or giving you the opportunity to look to find out from them or from people in the scenario what went on.
We bump our
And-
mics a lot. You don't have to worry about that.
I'm like
Not
trying
that
to be
much.
so quiet. I'm like hearing you guys bump it. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, it's
edit
fine.
it out.
And you'll find sometimes it's done for political reasons or to shut somebody up from being like, hey, there's a glaring problem here.
Yeah.
Right.
And it happens
And-
way too often. I think that's another red flag
Yeah.
is when anyone who's out is like the worst person in the world. It's a dangerous precedent to be setting because one, it's gonna catch people are gonna catch on. They're gonna be like,
Yeah.
him, really? That guy, that guy?
It's funny how much this parallels.
Oh, it does. It
Like,
does. It crosses.
It's almost like there's a it's almost like there's a playbook that they hand out.
It's just like you said earlier. Yeah. It's like they couldn't be further from each other. Right. Like a motorcycle gang and a
Club. I'll still defend club,
I'm
not a
sorry.
gang.
I'm
it's
the
a club.
outsider who doesn't know. I see you guys driving around, and I go, "There's a gang."
No, not a gang. Cult.
No,
Right.
we have great fundraisers. You tell me about a Bloods and Crips charity drive, I'll be there.
Oh, yeah?
You can start calling them a club too.
You should see these legalistic Christians raising money for
Oh yeah,
whatever it
yeah.
is.
I didn't say it was good. I just said it's not technically a gang.
Yeah. But I mean, like, something's not necessarily
mean.
something's not necessarily a cult to fall into those traps.
Yeah.
Like, any community can do it.
Yep. Yep.
Any community can do it.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't want guys to be listening to this to be like, "Oh no, you're in a cult." Like, maybe not, like,
Yeah.
but maybe, and maybe not where you're at, in the position. Like, you may not be experiencing these things. This may be, everything we're saying to you may be completely foreign because all this stuff is happening in a severe you're triangulated from.
And
Maybe you're in a healthy cult. And
Yeah.
You should stay there. And
Well, the thing is, it is what you
don't
make
stay
it.
in a healthy cult.
It
People.
is what you make it. A lot of times, what do they say? A cult is an organization with the doors locked from the inside. You make it what it is.
Right.
If
Yeah.
if it becomes a cult and you are hook, line, and sinker like that guy, he had an opportunity to be like, "No, I'm part of your community, but I'm not this far invested."
Yeah,
you
they-
have not made the choice, and he made that choice. And then he's like, "Okay, no, I can't continue here."
Well, and I have to be careful. I wouldn't say my parents ever ran a cult.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Like,
But
so
when you
yeah.
say cult
And-
like or cult light, very much so.
Yes.
And when it's like outside people going, "Is your dad is he running a
Yeah.
cult?" And
Like,
you hear that
there's-
once, it's like, no, that's ridiculous. But you hear it 5, 6, 7 times from people that love them and grew up with them. You go, okay, maybe there's
Maybe
something
there's
to this.
But at
Yeah.
the same time, there's a big difference between that and Jonestown,
oh yeah,
right? Like,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's
it
a
sounds
big
like
thing
great
between
time.
that and Mount Carmel with the Branch Davidians.
yeah,
I've heard they had
Yeah.
great Kool-Aid there, though.
yeah.
Delicious to die for. Too soon?
Oh, it's too
It was
low.
so easy.
No,
it was
not-
so low hanging.
I
exactly,
know.
low hanging
Take
fruit.
it.
Oh,
It's funny. It's gonna make somebody laugh.
yeah.
There'll be a dad.
I'll be laughing on the way home.
to die for.
Michael made the funniest joke the other day. He said it would.
Father.
Their Kool-Aid was to die for.
It's your comedian stage name now, Jonah the Bitch.
Oh my gosh.
No, Grinch is too far gone, man. You can't replace that.
Okay, if you ever do stand-up comedy though,
Oh, I should do that.
Jonah the bitch.
Jonah the bitch.
I
I've
I have
thought
coined
about
the
love
it.
it so much.
I would do oil field comedy. I would just be like, "Hey, somebody the other day came from out of town. They were like, hey, it's cold." It's like, "Fuck, what are you talking about?" And I don't know, just some kind of making fun of people from Quebec and Newfoundland because they're all here working. The bridge.
Do you see the video from the bridge today?
Yeah,
Somebody got nailed with a
It's-
tire.
yeah. It's going all over Facebook. Like, hey,
Yep,
look,
I saw that.
something
crazy.
happened.
Yeah.
And it's going everyone's
the
sharing
biggest
it.
thing of our
The
town.
idea of
I
getting
refuse
hit
to
by a
share it.
semi-truck tire on that bridge terrifies me.
That's
oh my
scary.
gosh.
At least it hit the right vehicle.
Yep.
It hit the right vehicle. For those that aren't in the know, take a look at Taylor Bridge or what is it? Near Taylor, BC.
Near Taylor, BC, skilled BC truckers or something like
Yeah,
that.
some
I don't know.
stupid thing. A tire came off a truck.
Yeah, so it's watching a semi-truck go down the bridge.
The world's longest bridge. Not quite, but it seems like it.
Seems like it when you're on it.
See through.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
see-through bridge. Yes, and there's another truck passes it, and after that truck passes, you see a little black line bouncing that gets really big, really fast, bouncing, and turns out to be a tire, and it punts this thing right in the front of the truck. And if that
And
thing
the
was
other
a
truck
car,
just-
And launched the other way like a field goal. Man,
Yeah.
I could have played some ping pong.
If it was a smaller truck or a smaller car,
Oh, if it had
anything
been my
other than-
car?
oh, you'd be gone.
Yeah.
You
we'd
have
be
no
having
more
a-
car.
We'd be having a very different conversation right
Yeah.
now about if annihilationism was truly
So-
real.
So Jesse canceled on us
Yeah,
like
you-
a douchebag.
I'm still here, guys.
Yeah. No,
In
so-
Devon's purgatory.
somebody said something to me that made me laugh about purgatory. They say, like, no, Protestants believe in purgatory too. Theirs is just faster.
That's kind of true.
was like, huh.
You're
Yeah,
in a
they're like,
lot.
no, you're sanctified in a moment.
Yeah.
That's exactly, it's just purgatory, but faster.
It works. It works.
That works. I mean,
So
common ground.
What are they fighting about? Come on. Could you imagine?
Right? Like, so much fighting. You're like, no, we were talking about the same thing the whole time.
I did.
The hell?
I did see this funny thing today. It's like children are more fascinated with the box than they are with the present. And then it showed a child inside of a box, and it said Mary on the box, and then Catholics as the child. Because they're more fascinated than the gift that came.
I could see that from the outside looking in.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah. I personally, I don't, like, I saw that from the outside
Oh,
looking
you saw
in.
that one? Yeah.
No, not that meme. Just
You can picture it.
That criticism. I can see that critique.
Yeah.
But from the other side, I'm like, no, that's not it. It's a both.
Yeah.
It's a both and.
So it's a asymmetric insight view.
Yeah,
of
it would be an
Catholicism.
asymmetric insight scenario. Where
I
you
know
think
white
you
collar words too.
Yeah,
That was a
where
very
it's like
good
you
word.
think you see something, like, and then you can critique it, not realizing that the majority of what's there is blind to you.
Okay, just I know we're getting close to the end here, so I just feel like we got to explain the word asymmetric insight. It's sorry, we do have some blue
philosopher
collar.
part is coming out.
We do have people that listen that don't know the big words. Asymmetric insight
That's
talks
me.
about how you believe you understand something better than the people that are in it.
Yeah,
Understand.
you pretend you.
Oh, so like we've been talking about all night about my parents.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Except no, you would be the person.
would be
that
the
has,
person that has the
You would
best-
have the
I have-
actual insight.
Yeah, to the best of your ability.
To the best of
To
my
the best of your
I would say
abilities,
have
at least
some of your
at least
asymmetric
up
insight.
to at least up to the point where you decided to
Yeah.
to hop in
It
your
was,
Civic.
it was super weird having all the family, not just your side, but my mom's side too, come and ask me my opinion of what they were doing. I'm like, I don't know. Like, why? But I was like the conduit between them. I can't talk to Marie or I can't talk to John, so I need to talk to you and see what's happening. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh. I like it'd be like all 16 of my mom's siblings sitting
So-
around staring at me going, what's happening with them?
So to better
That's weird.
understand this,
That
we need
would
to
be.
start
Oh
a
my
cult.
gosh.
We need to start a cult, and somebody here needs to descend, or we need to bring somebody else to be somebody who
A dissenter?
A dissenter.
A dissenter.
Yeah.
And then we can understand.
Then
for
we can
real.
understand it. Like until
Yeah.
then, who are we to say
Yeah.
what is or isn't a cult?
That's true.
I'm not smart enough to be charismatic or to be a leader, though.
Yeah.
I'm charismatic to be one.
What really
but not
sucks is
smart
when
enough
you
to be
realize
one.
that people from the outside looking in are nailing it. You're like, oh, okay, we're that transparent. I see.
Conspiracy Theorist 17.
Yeah.
It's only a theory until it's proven.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I have a lot of asymmetric insight towards you. I'm like, oh, this is what Mike really means. I do that all the time, at least in my own head.
Yeah.
Or yeah, so that I gotta check it sometimes and be like, okay,
Maybe I,
gotta
should
ask you.
him.
I gotta ask you a question.
Yeah, make sure your compass is working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is something to be said for not assuming, because that's the thing. We always assume we know things. There was this test done where they would ask you your favorite color, and then ask somebody else their favorite color, and ask them a series of questions, ask you the same question, and they would ask you to analyze their questions, and you could give a nuanced, very complicated answer for all their answers. It's like, oh, they said this because they're a racist. I don't know. Just throwing something. And then when asked about your answer, it was like, oh no, I just like the color blue.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's
that's so
that
good.
is asymmetric insight
Yeah.
to a T.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the best way I can explain it. So, anyways,
All right, should we wrap up?
we should. Jesse, do you have anything you need to plug?
You're doing a plug thing?
I don't know.
No.
Gotta ask.
No.
Writing
Thank you for
books.
having me on.
Do you need
Like-
get life insurance?
No, I'm
Talk
pretty
to him.
sure if this gets out, then I might have trouble keeping my job. So, no, I'm just kidding.
He doesn't work anywhere. He's a
I
hobo.
do not work anywhere. No, I'm not plugging anything.
Yeah, it's all good. No,
Thank you for having me on. And I mean, I knew it was going to be somewhat a therapy session.
it is.
And so I appreciate the chance to explore some of this stuff and chat it out with you guys.
Okay, you were a little bit nervous coming in. Were
Yep.
you happy? with the way that it turned out? Because I know this isn't
Well,
exactly what you were expecting.
No.
because
It's
it never
I mean,
is.
I listened to it a few times. I kind of knew what I was getting into.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was only nervous because I knew that I would have to talk about stuff I don't like talking about.
Okay.
But that's why I also wanted to do it.
Yeah.
That's what I
Every
like
now
to
and then you guys need to do that.
Okay,
Do you,
so
do you
Jordan
think do you
Peterson
think that
says
this is
that.
going to open up a little can of worms and people are going to be like, so I heard you say this, like finally?
Oh,
like,
for sure. Yeah,
Really?
but then I can just explain it more and be like, here's what I meant by that.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this and you have more questions, ask me. Don't ask somebody else.
Yeah.
Don't talk behind my back. Talk to me.
Yeah.
That's
I,
all.
I will
all of this
say,
is.
like as far as from the family dynamic, I have not heard a penny drop about any of this podcast from the family.
Okay, I've shared it.
Nothing.
You shared it?
Yeah, a few times.
Yeah, it's
for
like
you.
I've seen that. I mean, you've
My
commented.
family
and
hasn't.
you've commented and stuff like that. But as far as like comments or
Yeah.
criticism or being like, dude, what is going on with you? Like, haven't heard any of that.
That's funny. But I don't doubt it.
I just wonder if
Have you
it's,
from your family,
I
Mike?
wonder if it's we
My-
don't want to talk about it, or
brothers.
they're just really not paying attention.
We talked about it on the last one where my brothers actually called me up and they're like, hey, fucktard. And I'm like, what? And it's like, oh, you
what?
swear enough on your show. So I thought I could swear. I'm like, oh, okay. No,
And you
you're
did
just-
have your dad on,
you're
which we were talking
trying-
about before.
It's really good.
I think we should have Devin's dad on, or you should have.
we
Devin's
we
dad
do plan on having him on eventually.
on. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know,
because
so
I'd love
want
to
to. I-
listen to that.
I don't know how open he is to it. Like,
That's
he
the
would
thing.
be he would be such
He'd be very
an
entertaining.
entertaining
Oh,
interview.
yeah.
I want to so bad.
Yeah.
yeah, it would be fun. We just got to get him a box of wine and just let her go.
Just one wine.
Just
It's fine.
one wine,
And wine.
giant glass. Yeah, it is a lot of fun. We enjoy doing this, and I hope to have you back on. You may not be highly blue collar, but
You can
He's
forgive me
enough.
for that.
Blue collar enough
All right.
ish.
we
Blue collar esque.
we claim the word
Color-esque?
philosopher.
You
If
still
we
have
can put
you
the
still
word
have the stink of
philosopher-
it from your old life.
Does putting in hours count as blue collar? Because then I count, but I still have the stink of it, so that's fine.
There you go.
I can go climb under my house for an afternoon, and then I can come back on.
Perfect. Deal.
No, definitely. I look forward to having you on again. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you,
and
guys.
I enjoy doing this. So
Well, Jesse, cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
This was very good. I'm really happy to be able to have this conversation with you and finally ask some of these questions. And
Anytime.
I don't think people
Anytime.
understand how much of an inside look they're getting. But either way, God bless. Don't be a dick. Music has been brought to us by Kirk the Riffer Wells. He is at Liquid State Audio. He's a guitarist, producer, and the mixing engineer. Thank you from the Blue Collar Philosophers.